Welcome to tonight's journey into the darkest depths of our planet's final frontier. The ocean, vast, ancient, and filled with secrets that would make your skin crawl if you weren't drifting peacefully to sleep. I want you to imagine yourself floating, suspended above an endless abyss of midnight blue. Below you stretches a world we know less about than the surface of Mars. A realm where pressure can crush submarines like empty soda cans, and where creatures have evolved to survive in conditions that seem impossible. So settle in, pull your blankets a little closer, and let my voice guide you through the mysterious waters that cover over 70% of our world. If you're still awake in 20 minutes, I'd be genuinely surprised. But before we begin our descent, take a deep breath. It might be the last familiar thing you experience before we plunge into the unknown together. The average depth of our oceans is about 12,100 feet, but that's just the beginning of our story tonight. In certain places, like the Mariana Trench in the Western Pacific, the seafloor plummets to depths of over 36,000 feet. That's nearly 7 miles straight down, a distance so vast that if you place Mount Everest at the bottom, its peak would still be submerged under more than a mile of water. The pressure at these depths exceeds 1,000 atmospheres, the equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets balanced on your body. Yet somehow, against all logic, life exists down there. Life that has never seen the sun, never felt warmth, never known anything but eternal darkness and crushing cold. These creatures have evolved in isolation for millions of years, developing adaptations so alien they might as well be from another planet entirely. Some generate their own ghostly light, creating constellations in an endless night. Others have become transparent, like living ghosts drifting through the black water. Many have enormous eyes, not to see light where there is none, but to detect the faintest bioluminescent glow of potential prey or predators. The deeper we descend into the ocean, the stranger everything becomes. At 3,000 feet, we enter the midnight zone, where no sunlight penetrates. Here, the water temperature drops to just above freezing, and the only light comes from the creatures themselves. Fish at this depth often have enormous jaws filled with needle-like teeth, capable of unhinging to swallow prey larger than themselves. The anglerfish dangles a glowing lure above its head, attracting curious victims directly into its waiting mouth. Vampire squid don't actually suck blood, but they do have webbing between their arms that can be pulled over their bodies like a cloak when threatened. Gulper eels can expand their mouths to swallow prey several times their size, their bodies little more than stomachs with tails. And these are just the creatures we know about. Marine biologists estimate that up to 2/3 of all ocean-dwelling species remain undiscovered. That means potentially millions of creatures exist in the deep that human eyes have never seen. Every expedition to the deepest parts of our oceans returns with footage of animals that defy categorization. Ghostly octopi with delicate fins that swim like underwater angels. Gelatinous creatures that pulse with internal light, creating mesmerizing patterns as they drift through the darkness. Fish with transparent skulls, their brains visible through the clear dome of their heads. The deeper we go, the more bizarre life becomes. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron made a historic solo dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. His submarine, the Deep-Sea Challenger, was specifically designed to withstand pressures that would instantly crush a conventional submarine. What he found at the bottom wasn't a barren wasteland, but a surprisingly active ecosystem. Mysterious shrimp-like creatures scuttled across the seafloor. Translucent sea cucumbers undulated in the gentle current. Delicate bacterial mats covered rocks like strange underwater snow. Life finds a way, even in the most hostile environment on our planet. The Mariana Trench isn't just a deep hole in the ocean floor, it's an actual gateway to the interior of our planet. It exists at a subduction zone, where one tectonic plate is being forced beneath another. This creates not just extreme depth, but a unique chemical environment unlike anywhere else on Earth. Scientists have discovered microbes in the trench that can metabolize compounds we once thought were toxic to all life. These organisms don't need sunlight or oxygen. They've evolved to harness the chemical energy seeping from hydrothermal vents. In a very real sense, they represent an entirely different evolutionary path, one that didn't rely on the sun's energy. If we ever find life on distant moons, like Europa or Enceladus, it might resemble these trench-dwelling extremophiles more than anything walking on Earth's surface. Now let's drift away from the Mariana Trench and explore another ocean mystery, one that has puzzled sailors for centuries. The Bermuda Triangle, stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has allegedly claimed hundreds of ships and aircraft. While skeptics point to natural explanations like powerful Gulf Stream currents and unpredictable weather patterns, others believe something more mysterious is at work. One scientific theory suggests that large methane gas bubbles released from underwater deposits could potentially lower the density of water enough to sink ships instantly. Another points to electronic fog, a rare meteorological phenomenon that could disrupt navigational equipment and disorient pilots. Whether you believe the explanations or not, the number of disappearances in this relatively small area of ocean is statistically unusual. Ships that sent no distress signals before vanishing without a trace. Aircraft that disappeared from radar in clear weather. Rescue vessels that went looking for missing craft, only to vanish themselves. Perhaps the most famous Bermuda Triangle disappearance was Flight 19, 5 Navy bombers that vanished during a routine training mission in December 1945. The 14 airmen aboard the planes were experienced pilots, yet they became mysteriously disoriented. Their last radio transmissions reported compass malfunctions and strange visual conditions. Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. One pilot reportedly said, "The weather was clear, the planes had sufficient fuel, and no debris was ever found." A rescue plane sent to find them also disappeared with its 13-man crew. 27 men vanished in a single day, and to this day, not a single piece of wreckage has ever been recovered. It's as if they simply ceased to exist over the Atlantic waters. The ocean doesn't just swallow ships and planes, it sometimes returns them, but in disturbing ways. Ghost ships, vessels found drifting at sea with their crews mysteriously missing, have been reported throughout maritime history. The Mary Celeste is perhaps the most famous example, discovered adrift and abandoned in 1872, with no sign of her captain or crew. The ship was seaworthy, with ample provisions and the crew's belongings still aboard. The only lifeboat was missing, suggesting a deliberate abandonment rather than a sudden catastrophe. But what could make an experienced captain and crew abandon a perfectly good vessel in the middle of the Atlantic? No convincing explanation has ever been found. More recently, in 2006, the catamaran Cas-2 was found drifting off the coast of Australia. The engine was running, a laptop was still on, food was set out on the table, and life jackets remained stowed. The three-man crew had simply vanished without a trace. Video footage recovered from a camera on board showed nothing unusual in the hours before their disappearance. One moment they were there, the next they weren't, as if something had reached up from the depths and plucked them from existence. The ocean keeps its secrets well, locked away beneath miles of silent water. As we drift deeper into our exploration, let's consider the sounds that haunt the underwater world. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones detected an ultra-low frequency sound in the Pacific Ocean that was one of the loudest underwater sounds ever recorded. Scientists named it the bloop, an apt description of its distinctive signature when played at higher speeds. Initially, some speculated it might be a previously unknown sea creature, something massive beyond imagination. The sound was eventually attributed to ice calving from Antarctica, but not everyone is convinced by this explanation. Whatever caused the bloop was heard over 3,000 miles away, a sound so powerful it traveled across nearly an entire ocean basin. For perspective, that would be like someone in New York hearing a sound made in London. What kind of force could generate such acoustic energy? Even more mysterious is the sound known as Julia, a rising tone detected in 1999 that doesn't match any known geological or biological source. Unlike the bloop, Julia's origin remains completely unexplained. It doesn't match the acoustic signature of submarines, earthquakes, or any known marine animals. It's as if something in the deep ocean wanted to be heard, but spoke in a language we cannot understand. The oceans are never truly silent. They're filled with a constant symphony of sounds, most of which we've only begun to catalog and identify. Whales communicate across hundreds of miles with songs that can last for hours. Swarms of tiny snapping shrimp create a persistent crackling that sailors once mistook for the sound of their hulls breaking apart. And sometimes, from the deepest zones, come sounds we cannot explain at all. In the cold waters off Greenland swims a mystery that has puzzled marine biologists for decades, Greenland sharks that may be over 500 years old. These slow-moving giants of the deep can live for centuries, making them the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. A Greenland shark born during the reign of Henry VIII could still be swimming in Arctic waters today. They grow less than an inch per year and don't reach sexual maturity until they're about 150 years old. Imagine a creature whose lifespan has encompassed the entire modern history of human civilization. What secrets might be locked in the memories of these ancient beings, if we could somehow access them? What changes have they witnessed in our oceans, over the span of half a millennium? The Greenland shark's incredible longevity raises profound questions about aging itself. Their cells seem resistant to the deterioration that limits the lifespan of most vertebrates. Scientists are studying these sharks, hoping to unlock the secrets of their extraordinary longevity. Could understanding how they live for centuries lead to breakthroughs in human medicine? These sharks are living time capsules, swimming slowly through cold Arctic waters as empires rise and fall on the distant shores. They are indifferent witnesses to human history, their slow hearts beating to a rhythm measured not in years, but in centuries. As you drift closer to sleep, Imagine the patience of a creature that experiences time so differently from us, for whom a human lifetime is but a brief moment. Let's sink deeper now, into the realm of bioluminescence, living light in the darkness of the deep. Below 3,000 feet, where sunlight never reaches, an estimated 90% of creatures produce their own light. They create a galaxy of living stars in an endless night, each with its own reason for shining. Some use light to attract prey, dangling glowing lures, like the infamous anglerfish. Others illuminate their surroundings to hunt more effectively in the darkness. Many use patterns of light to communicate with potential mates or to warn away competitors. And some, perhaps most ingeniously, use counter-illumination, lights on their undersides that match the faint glow from the surface, rendering them invisible to predators looking up from below. The chemistry behind bioluminescence involves a compound called luciferin, which produces light when it reacts with oxygen. This reaction is controlled by an enzyme called luciferase, literally, light bringer. The colors range from violet to red, though blue-green is most common because it travels farthest through seawater. Some creatures don't produce their own light, but host colonies of bioluminescent bacteria that live symbiotically in specialized organs. These bacteria produce continuous light, which the host can control by covering or exposing the light organs. It's a relationship evolved over millions of years. The bacteria get a safe place to live, and the host gets free illumination. In the darkness of the deep, light is power. Light is life. Light is survival. Perhaps the most spectacular bioluminescent display comes from certain species of dinoflagellates, microscopic plankton that light up when disturbed. When conditions are right, they can bloom in such numbers that entire waves glow blue as they break on the shore. Sailors have reported sailing through what appear to be oceans of milk, their ships' wake blazing with cold fire for miles behind them. These living light shows are one of the ocean's most magical phenomena, a reminder that even the smallest organisms can create wonder on a massive scale. As you lie there, growing sleepier by the minute, imagine waves of soft blue light washing over you, carrying you gently toward dreams. The rhythm of the ocean becomes the rhythm of your breathing, deep and regular, drawing you down into peaceful darkness. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most perplexing features, underwater rivers and lakes. Yes, you heard that correctly. There are actual rivers and lakes within the ocean itself. These form when seawater with different salinity levels refuses to mix, creating distinct boundaries that behave like the shores of lakes or the banks of rivers. In the Gulf of Mexico, scientists have discovered an underwater river, complete with its own waterfalls and rippling surface. This river flows along the ocean floor, carrying sediment and creating riverbanks, just like rivers on land. Fish swim above it as if it were a physical feature they needed to avoid crossing. Divers who visit these underwater rivers report an eerie sensation, as if the laws of physics have been temporarily suspended. Even stranger are the underwater lakes, pools of supersaline water that settle in depressions on the seafloor. These lakes have their own shorelines, surfaces, and even waves, despite being hundreds or thousands of feet below the ocean's surface. The boundary between the lake and the surrounding seawater is so distinct that submarines can actually float on the surface of these underwater lakes. Some of these lakes even have shores composed of living bacterial mats that metabolize methane seeping from below. These ecosystems exist nowhere else on Earth, isolated habitats, with their own unique communities of organisms. Life adapts to even the strangest conditions our planet can produce, finding opportunities in environments we once thought were too extreme for anything to survive. Deep-sea hydrothermal vents represent another world within a world in the ocean depths. First discovered in 1977, these underwater geysers spew superheated water loaded with minerals and chemicals toxic to most life forms. Yet around these vents thrives an ecosystem unlike anything else on Earth, one that doesn't depend on sunlight at all. Giant tube worms growing up to 8 feet tall have no mouths or digestive systems. Instead, they host symbiotic bacteria that convert the toxic chemicals from the vents into usable energy. Blind shrimp with light-sensing organs on their backs swarm around the vents in such density, they look like snowstorms in the submersible's lights. Ghostly white crabs pick at bacterial mats that grow on rocks where 700-degree vent water meets near-freezing seawater. The discovery of these vent communities revolutionized our understanding of where life can exist. Before 1977, scientists believed all ecosystems ultimately depended on photosynthesis, the conversion of sunlight into energy by plants. The vent communities proved that life could exist completely independent of the sun, using chemosynthesis instead. This discovery expanded our search for extraterrestrial life to places we would previously have dismissed as too hostile. If life can thrive in boiling, toxic, pitch-black conditions at the bottom of Earth's oceans, perhaps it could also exist in the subsurface oceans of moons like Europa or Enceladus. The extremes of our own planet have become testing grounds for understanding what might be possible elsewhere in the cosmos. As you drift closer to sleep, consider how the most alien environment on Earth might be the key to finding life beyond it. Let's turn our attention now to one of the ocean's most perfect hunters, a creature that has remained virtually unchanged for 450 million years. The chambered nautilus, with its spiral shell and dozens of tentacles, is often called a living fossil. It belongs to a group of animals that dominated Earth's oceans when dinosaurs were still hundreds of millions of years in the future. While its cousins, the ammonites, vanished in the same extinction event that claimed the dinosaurs, the nautilus survived. It navigates the deep ocean using a system of chambered buoyancy that engineers have studied to improve submarine design. Each chamber in its shell contains a precisely controlled amount of gas, allowing the nautilus to hover effortlessly at any depth it chooses. Its eye has a simple pinhole design with no lens, yet it works remarkably well in the low-light conditions of its deep-water habitat. The nautilus lives at depths between 300 and 2,000 feet, rising to shallower waters at night to feed. It has up to 90 tentacles, unlike its relatives, the octopus and squid, which typically have 8 and 10 respectively. Each tentacle is ridged with sticky structures that capture prey and pass it toward the sharp, parrot-like beak. The spiral of its shell follows a perfect mathematical pattern known as the golden ratio, a proportion found throughout nature and considered aesthetically perfect by many cultures. Looking at a nautilus shell is like looking at living mathematics, a physical embodiment of perfect geometric progression. Some specimens have been found with shells scarred by failed attacks from large predators like sharks. These ancient survivors have witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, yet they remain patient, perfect, unchanged. Now, as your eyelids grow heavier, let's explore what might be the ocean's most enduring mystery: underwater structures that some believe are evidence of ancient civilizations. Off the coast of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, lie massive stone formations with straight edges, right angles, and features that resemble ramps, columns, and stairs. Discovered in 1987 by a diver searching for new spots to observe hammerhead sharks, the Yonaguni monument immediately sparked controversy. Some geologists insist the formations are natural, created by the region's unique rock fracturing patterns and erosion. Others, including some marine archaeologists, believe they show evidence of human modification dating back at least 10,000 years. If the latter interpretation is correct, these structures would have been created when sea levels were much lower, and what is now underwater was dry land. The debate continues, with no definitive resolution in sight. Similar controversies surround structures found off the coast of Cuba, in the so-called Cuban underwater city. Sonar surveys in 2001 revealed what appeared to be geometric structures covering about 2 square kilometers at a depth of over 2,000 feet. The regular arrangement of these structures led some researchers to suggest they might be the remains of an ancient urban center. Skeptics point out that natural geological processes can create surprisingly regular patterns that might be misinterpreted as artificial. The extreme depth has made detailed investigation difficult, and conclusive evidence, either way, remains elusive. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these discoveries is their implication for human prehistory. If they do prove to be artificial, our current understanding of ancient civilizations would need significant revision if advanced societies existed thousands of years earlier than we currently believe. The ocean floor also holds more recent secrets, the final resting places of thousands of shipwrecks spanning human maritime history. Experts estimate there are over 3 million shipwrecks scattered across the world's ocean floors. Most will never be found, protected from human interference by depth, darkness, and the vast expanses of our oceanic wilderness. Some wrecks have become accidental reefs, their rusting hulls providing structure for coral growth and shelter for countless marine species. Nature reclaims these human intrusions, transforming them from disasters into habitats over decades and centuries. Fish swim through the corridors where sailors once walked, and anemones bloom from gun turrets that once fired in anger. There's something poetic about these transformations, monuments to human tragedy becoming cradles of new life. Among the most sought-after shipwrecks are those carrying treasure: Spanish galleons laden with gold and silver, merchant vessels transporting precious gems, or warships carrying military payrolls. The allure of underwater treasure has driven exploration since the invention of diving equipment, though the reality rarely matches the romantic image. Recovery operations are expensive, technically challenging, and often bound by complex international laws regarding salvage rights and cultural heritage. Many countries now view historic shipwrecks in their waters as underwater archaeological sites, rather than treasure troves to be exploited. This shift in perspective recognizes that the historical and cultural value of these wrecks often exceeds their monetary worth. The stories they tell about trade routes, naval warfare, and everyday life at sea provide irreplaceable insights into our maritime past. As you drift toward sleep, imagine these silent time capsules resting in the darkness, preserving moments of history in their slowly decaying remains. The deep ocean also holds vessels of more recent and somber significance, submarines lost with all hands during the Cold War. The Soviet submarine K-129 sank in 1968 under mysterious circumstances in the Pacific Ocean. The loss triggered one of the most extraordinary covert operations in CIA history, Project Azorian, an attempt to raise the submarine from a depth of 16,500 feet. Using the cover story of mining manganese nodules from the seafloor, the CIA built a specialized ship called the Glomar Explorer for the recovery mission. Though partially successful, most details about what was recovered and what caused the submarine's sinking remain classified to this day. Similar mysteries surround the fate of the USS Scorpion, an American nuclear submarine that disappeared in the Atlantic that same year. Despite extensive searches, the exact cause of the Scorpion's loss remains unknown, though theories range from mechanical failure to an accidental torpedo detonation. These Cold War submarine losses highlight how even in our modern era, the ocean can swallow evidence and keep secrets indefinitely. Both submarines carried nuclear weapons, raising environmental concerns that continue to this day. Monitoring has shown no significant radiation leakage so far, but the submarine's nuclear reactors and warheads will remain potentially dangerous for thousands of years. They are unintended time capsules of the nuclear age, slowly corroding in the darkness of the deep ocean. The crews of these vessels never returned home, their final moments known only to the silent waters that claimed them. Their families were left without closure, without a grave to visit, without knowing exactly what happened in those final moments. The ocean keeps its witnesses, but it rarely shares their testimony with those of us who remain on the surface. Let's turn now to one of the ocean's most remarkable engineering feats, not by humans, but by tiny marine organisms working collectively over vast periods of time. The Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia is the world's largest living structure, visible even from space. It consists of nearly 3,000 individual reef systems and hundreds of islands spanning over 1,400 miles. Each coral polyp is a tiny animal, related to sea anemones and jellyfish, that secretes a calcium carbonate skeleton. Generations of polyps build upon the remains of their ancestors, gradually creating massive reef structures that can grow up to 8 inches per year in ideal conditions. Some parts of the Great Barrier Reef began forming over 20 million years ago, making it one of the oldest continuous ecosystems on Earth. The reef supports over 1,500 species of fish, 4,000 types of mollusk, 240 species of birds, and countless other marine organisms. Despite its size and resilience, the Great Barrier Reef faces unprecedented threats from climate change, ocean acidification, and human activity. Rising sea temperatures have triggered mass coral bleaching events, where stressed corals expel the symbiotic algae that provide their color and most of their nutrients. Without these algae, the corals turn white and often die, transforming vibrant underwater cities into ghost towns of dead skeletons. The ocean absorbs about 30% of the carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere, which reacts with seawater to form carbonic acid. This gradual acidification makes it more difficult for corals and other marine organisms to build their calcium carbonate structures. It's like trying to build a sandcastle while someone slowly dissolves the sand. Eventually, the entire structure becomes unstable. As you drift towards sleep, consider this paradox, that something which has survived for millions of years could be unraveled in just a few human generations. Deep beneath Antarctic ice shelves lurks another ocean mystery, one that challenges our understanding of where complex life can survive. In 2021, scientists drilling through 3,000 feet of ice discovered stationary animals attached to a boulder on the seafloor underneath the Filchner ice shelf. These sponge-like organisms and other unidentified creatures were thriving in perpetual darkness, extreme cold, and almost no food sources. Their presence was baffling because they were 160 miles from the open ocean, too far for currents to reliably transport food particles. This discovery suggests there might be entire ecosystems in under-ice environments that we've never suspected existed. It raises profound questions about the minimum requirements for complex life, and suggests that life on Earth is even more tenacious than we imagined. If creatures can survive in what amounts to an underwater desert beneath Antarctic ice, where else might life be hiding in our oceans? The discovery of thriving communities in such hostile environments forces us to reconsider our definition of habitable. These adaptable creatures remind us that life finds a way, even in conditions that seem impossibly hostile by human standards. Their existence also provides hope for finding life beyond Earth, particularly on icy moons with subsurface oceans like Jupiter's Europa. If complex animals can live under thousands of feet of Antarctic ice with minimal food, perhaps similar creatures could exist in Europa's subsurface ocean. The boundaries between possible and impossible continue to shift as we explore more of our own planet's extremes. Each discovery in these hostile environments expands our understanding of life's potential and resilience. As your consciousness begins to drift, imagine these patient creatures, in their dark, cold world, surviving against all odds and conditions that would kill a human in minutes. Another ocean mystery that continues to puzzle scientists is the phenomenon known as rogue waves. For centuries, sailors returned from voyages with tales of monstrous waves appearing suddenly out of relatively calm seas. These stories were often dismissed as maritime myths or exaggerations, until scientific instruments finally recorded one. In 1995, an oil platform in the North Sea measured a wave 84 feet high in a sea where the significant wave height was only 39 feet. This confirmed what mariners had been reporting for centuries, that the ocean sometimes produces waves that defy statistical models. Rogue waves aren't just bigger than average waves. They appear suddenly, often from unexpected directions, with little warning. They can hit ships broadside, capsizing vessels, or causing catastrophic structural damage before disappearing back into the sea. Modern understanding suggests several possible mechanisms for rogue wave formation, including constructive interference when multiple wave systems meet. Computer models indicate that in certain conditions, energy can be transferred from smaller surrounding waves to create a single monster wave. Another theory involves waves moving from deep water into shallower areas, where they become compressed and dramatically increase in height. The Three Sisters phenomenon describes a sequence of three unusually large waves, with the middle wave often being the largest and most dangerous. Sailors have reported this pattern for centuries, describing how the first wave clears the deck, the second wave disables the vessel, and the third wave sinks it. Despite our advanced understanding of ocean physics, we still cannot reliably predict when and where rogue waves will form. The ocean reminds us that even with all our technology and knowledge, some aspects of nature remain fundamentally unpredictable. Let's dive deeper now into one of the ocean's most misunderstood inhabitants, the shark, a creature that has been evolving for over 450 million years. Sharks were swimming in Earth's oceans before trees existed on land, before dinosaurs appeared, before the continents had reached their current positions. They have survived all 5 major mass extinction events, demonstrating a remarkable evolutionary resilience. There are over 500 species of shark, ranging from the 8-inch dwarf lantern shark to the 40-foot whale shark. Despite their fearsome reputation, only about a dozen shark species have ever been documented attacking humans. You're more likely to be killed by a falling coconut, a vending machine, or a champagne cork than by a shark. These ancient predators don't deserve their monstrous image. They're sophisticated animals perfectly adapted to their ecological role. The most mysterious of all sharks might be the megamouth, a species so elusive it wasn't discovered until 1976. Growing up to 18 feet long, with a distinctively large mouth and luminous lips, the megamouth is one of the 3 known filter-feeding shark species. Fewer than 100 specimens have ever been observed by humans, making it one of the least understood large animals on the planet. Scientists believe they spend most of their time in the deep ocean, rising to shallower waters at night to feed on plankton and small fish. Their discovery so recently in our history raises an unsettling question. What other large marine creatures might still be swimming in our oceans, unknown to science? If an 18-foot shark with a 3-foot wide mouth could remain hidden until the late 20th century, what else might be lurking in the depths? As you grow sleepier, imagine the vast expanses of unexplored ocean where such creatures might still swim, unseen and undisturbed by human eyes. The Greenland shark we mentioned earlier holds another strange secret. Almost all of them are blind, their eyes hosting parasitic copepods. These small crustaceans attach themselves to the shark's corneas, dangling like grotesque ornaments from the eyes of these ancient predators. Remarkably, this relationship appears to benefit the sharks, as the parasite's movement attracts prey through bioluminescence. It's a bizarre example of how evolution can turn even a seemingly detrimental relationship into a survival advantage. These blind hunters navigate primarily through their excellent sense of smell, which guides them to carrion and live prey alike. Scientists have found reindeer, moose, and even polar bear remains in their stomachs, suggesting they will eat virtually anything they encounter. Their metabolism is incredibly slow, a reflection of their cold habitat and unhurried lifestyle that spans centuries rather than decades. Deep in the waters off Antarctica swims another oceanic marvel, the colossal squid, possibly the largest invertebrate on Earth. With eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest of any known animal, these creatures can detect the faintest light in the deep ocean darkness. Their tentacles are armed with swiveling hooks and suckers ringed with sharp teeth, allowing them to grasp prey with inescapable efficiency. They hunt in the midnight zone between 3,000 and 6,500 feet deep, where their massive eyes give them a crucial advantage over potential prey. Unlike their relatives, the giant squid, colossal squid have broader, more compact bodies and shorter arms, making them better suited for ambush hunting. The largest specimen ever captured weighed over 1,000 pounds, though scientists believe they may grow considerably larger. These elusive predators are rarely seen alive, known primarily from specimens found in the stomachs of sperm whales or accidentally caught by deep-sea fishing vessels. Speaking of sperm whales, these massive mammals routinely dive to depths of over 7,000 feet in pursuit of their favorite prey, giant and colossal squid. These hunting expeditions take them into a realm of near-freezing temperatures, crushing pressure, and absolute darkness. To find prey in these conditions, sperm whales use the most powerful, natural sonar system known. Their distinctive block-shaped heads contain specialized organs that generate directional clicks louder than a jet engine. These sound waves bounce off potential prey, returning echoes that the whale interprets to create a three-dimensional acoustic image of its surroundings. The clicks are so powerful, they can actually stun prey, making it easier for the whale to capture fast-moving squid. Evidence of epic battles between sperm whales and giant squid can be seen in the circular scars on whales' skin, souvenirs from the squid's tooth suckers as they fought for their lives. These confrontations happen in darkness, so complete that neither predator nor prey can see the other. A deadly game of hide-and-seek played through sound and touch alone. The ocean's surface conceals more than just physical mysteries. It also hides entire soundscapes inaudible to human ears, without specialized equipment. Hydrophones placed in the ocean have revealed a constant symphony of sounds, some identifiable, others completely mysterious. Whales communicate through complex songs that can travel for hundreds of miles through the water. Dolphins use distinctive whistles and clicks, essentially naming themselves and others in their pod. Schools of fish create collective murmurs as they move together, a sound fishermen once used to locate catches before the invention of sonar. Even coral reefs have their own acoustic signatures, a crackling, popping soundscape created by countless small invertebrates. Scientists are increasingly concerned about how human-generated noise pollution might be disrupting these ancient sound patterns and the creatures that depend on them. One of the most haunting ocean sounds was recorded in 1997, a whale song, unlike any previously documented. This whale, nicknamed 52 Blue or the loneliest whale in the world, calls at a frequency of 52 Hz, significantly higher than the 15-25 Hz range used by typical blue whales. For years, the same distinctive call has been tracked across vast distances of the Pacific Ocean, always seemingly alone. Scientists debate whether 52 Blue is a hybrid between two whale species, a whale with a physical deformity, or perhaps the last of its kind. Whatever the explanation, there's something profoundly moving about this solitary voice calling out across the ocean, potentially never receiving a response. The whale has become a symbol for human loneliness, a creature crying out in a frequency others of its kind cannot understand or answer. As you drift towards sleep, imagine that haunting call echoing through dark waters, a reminder that even the mightiest creatures can experience isolation. Let's explore another oceanic enigma, the Baltic Sea anomaly, a circular formation discovered by Swedish treasure hunters in 2011. Sonar images revealed what appeared to be a perfectly circular object about 200 feet in diameter, resting on the seafloor. Initial reports claimed the object resembled the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, with unusual straight edges and right angles. Some speculated it might be a crashed UFO, a World War II naval mine, or an ancient building foundation. Geological experts suggest it's likely a natural formation, perhaps a glacial deposit or volcanic rock formation with unusual features. Without thorough scientific examination, which is yet to be conducted, the true nature of the anomaly remains uncertain. It's a perfect example of how the ocean continues to present us with mysteries that capture our imagination, regardless of their ultimate explanation. The deep ocean is also home to what might be the world's oldest living individual organism, the black coral. Unlike surface corals that build massive reef structures, black corals typically grow in deep, cold waters beyond the reach of sunlight. Some specimens are estimated to be over 4,000 years old, meaning they were already ancient when the pyramids were being built. These corals grow incredibly slowly, often less than 1/10 of an inch per year, which contributes to their extraordinary longevity. Their skeletal structure records environmental conditions, like a living thermometer, providing scientists with valuable data about historical ocean temperatures. These ancient organisms have witnessed the entire span of human civilization from their quiet darkness in the deep ocean. They are living fossils, biological time capsules that connect us to an ancient past long before written history began. Among the ocean's most spectacular visual phenomena are underwater forests of giant kelp, stretching from the seafloor toward the surface. These marine algae can grow up to 2 feet per day in ideal conditions, creating submarine forests that provide habitat for thousands of species. Giant kelp off the coast of California can reach heights of over 150 feet, comparable to a 15-story building on land. The intricate architecture of these underwater forests creates complex three-dimensional habitats with different ecological niches. Fish dart between the swaying fronds, sea otters wrap themselves in kelp to anchor while they sleep, and countless invertebrates crawl across the living surfaces. From above, these kelp forests might look like dark, formless shadows in the water, but beneath the surface, they're vibrant metropolises of marine life. The interplay of sunlight filtering through the canopy creates an ethereal, cathedral-like atmosphere that divers often describe as spiritual. Deeper than any kelp forest, beyond where photosynthesis is possible, lies an entirely different kind of forest, one made of ancient deep-water corals. These corals don't need sunlight or symbiotic algae. They're carnivores that capture passing plankton and other small organisms with their tentacles. Some deep-water coral reefs off Norway's coast have been growing continuously for over 8,000 years, making them older than any human structure on Earth. Their complex three-dimensional structures provide critical habitat for hundreds of fish species, many of commercial importance. Unlike their tropical cousins, these cold-water corals grow extremely slowly, often just a few millimeters per year. This makes them particularly vulnerable to damage from bottom-trawling fishing methods, which can destroy in minutes what took centuries to create. Conservation efforts now focus on mapping these ancient structures and protecting them from human activities that could threaten their continued existence. The ocean harbors not just biological mysteries but chemical ones as well, including the strange phenomenon of underwater lakes and rivers we touched on earlier. These formations occur when water with extremely high salt content settles into depressions on the seafloor, creating distinct boundaries that don't mix with surrounding seawater. The boundary between these supersaline lakes and normal seawater is so distinct that submarines can actually float on their surfaces, unable to penetrate the dense layer. Divers who visit these underwater lakes report an eerie visual distortion when looking through the boundary layer, similar to the heat shimmer above hot asphalt. Some of these lakes contain water that has been isolated from the main ocean for thousands of years, creating unique chemical environments. Microorganisms adapted to these extreme conditions may represent some of the most unusual metabolic pathways on Earth. These chemical time capsules might provide insights into ancient ocean chemistry and the evolution of life in extreme environments. Equally mysterious are cold seeps, areas where methane, hydrogen sulfide, and other hydrocarbon-rich fluids leak from the seafloor. Unlike the superheated hydrothermal vents we discussed earlier, cold seeps release fluids at roughly the same temperature as the surrounding seawater. These seeps support unique ecosystems based on chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis, much like hydrothermal vent communities. Giant tube worms, specialized mussels, and mat-forming bacteria harness the chemical energy of the seeping fluids to support complex food webs. Some cold seeps create bizarre underwater landscapes, with methane hydrate formations that look like ice but will actually burn if brought to the surface. These flammable ice deposits contain enormous amounts of methane, a potent greenhouse gas, raising concerns about their stability in warming oceans. The delicate balance of pressure and temperature that keeps these hydrates stable could be disrupted by even small changes in ocean temperature. Another chemical enigma in our oceans is the phenomenon known as dead zones, areas where oxygen levels drop so low that most marine life cannot survive. The largest dead zone forms seasonally in the Gulf of Mexico, covering up to 7,000 square miles during summer months. It's caused by nitrogen and phosphorus pollution flowing down the Mississippi River, primarily from agricultural fertilizer runoff. These nutrients trigger massive algal blooms that eventually die, sink to the bottom, and decompose, a process that consumes virtually all available oxygen. Mobile creatures like fish and shrimp flee these areas if they can, while slower or sessile organisms simply suffocate. The economic impact on fisheries can be devastating, with shrimp and fish populations displaced or decimated in affected areas. What's particularly disturbing is that the number and size of these dead zones have been increasing globally over the past 50 years. The ocean doesn't just contain mysteries. Sometimes it creates them, as with the case of floating debris that seems to defy the laws of physics. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not, as often imagined, a solid island of trash, but rather a concentration of floating plastic particles suspended in the upper water column. Ocean currents create massive gyres, circular patterns that slowly concentrate floating materials toward their centers, like giant, liquid whirlpools operating in slow motion. Some of the plastic in these garbage patches has been circulating for decades, gradually breaking down into smaller and smaller pieces without fully degrading. Marine animals mistake these microplastics for food, ingesting toxins that then move up the food chain, eventually reaching human consumers. What's particularly insidious about these plastic concentrations is their invisibility to casual observation. Much of the debris floats just below the surface. Satellite images that show beautiful blue ocean may be looking right through water filled with nearly invisible plastic particles. The ocean's surface conceals not just pollution, but also vast underwater mountain ranges, more extensive than anything on land. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is just one section of a global underwater mountain chain that winds for over 40,000 miles through all the world's major oceans. This is the longest mountain range on Earth, yet most people have never seen images of it or even know it exists. It formed and continues to grow through the process of seafloor spreading, where tectonic plates move apart and magma rises to create new oceanic crust. In some places, the peaks of these underwater mountains rise above the surface to form islands like Iceland, the Azores, and St. Helena. The ridges create their own ecosystems, influencing ocean currents, providing habitat for countless species, and even containing unique mineral deposits. These submarine mountains are among the most geologically active areas on Earth, with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that reshape the seafloor. At the opposite extreme from mountains are the ocean's deepest trenches, long, narrow depressions in the seafloor that mark subduction zones where tectonic plates collide. The Mariana Trench, which we mentioned earlier, is just one of many such features scattered across the global ocean floor. The Tonga Trench in the South Pacific reaches depths of over 35,000 feet, making it the second deepest point in the ocean. The Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic plunges to more than 27,000 feet, the deepest point in that ocean basin. These trenches are not just deep holes in the seafloor, they're active geological features, where one tectonic plate is being forced beneath another. This subduction process generates some of the most powerful earthquakes on Earth and feeds the volcanic activity of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Each trench has its own unique ecosystem adapted to the extreme pressure, cold, and darkness that characterize these ultimate depths. The trenches also play a crucial role in the carbon cycle of our planet, a process that affects all life on Earth. As organic matter sinks through the water column, much of it is consumed or decomposed, but some reaches the seafloor intact. In trench environments, this carbon can be effectively sequestered for millions of years as the seafloor is drawn down into the Earth's mantle. This natural carbon sequestration has helped regulate Earth's climate throughout geological history. Human activities are now adding carbon to the atmosphere faster than these natural processes can remove it, leading to climate change. Some scientists have proposed enhancing the ocean's natural carbon sequestering abilities as one approach to addressing this imbalance. These proposals highlight how understanding deep ocean processes isn't just academic, it's potentially crucial for humanity's future. Let's rise from the trenches now and explore one of the ocean's most visible but mysterious phenomena, the color of seawater itself. We often think of the ocean as blue, but its color varies dramatically depending on location, time of day, weather conditions, and what's in the water. The deep blue of the open ocean results from water molecules, absorbing the red end of the light spectrum and scattering blue wavelengths. Coastal waters often appear green or brown due to sediment, algae, and dissolved organic matter, reflecting different wavelengths. Red tides occur when certain algae bloom in massive numbers, sometimes producing toxins that can kill fish and make shellfish dangerous to eat. Milky seas, rare phenomena, where the ocean surface glows with a steady white light visible from space, are caused by bioluminescent bacteria blooming over large areas. The changing colors of our oceans can tell us about their health, productivity, and the invisible processes occurring beneath the surface. Ocean colors are more than just beautiful. They're data that scientists use to monitor everything from pollution to climate change. Satellite imagery tracking ocean color has revealed the annual greening of the North Atlantic as spring phytoplankton blooms explode into life. These tiny plant-like organisms produce about half of the oxygen we breathe, making them arguably more important than rainforests for our atmosphere. Their populations are sensitive indicators of ocean health, responding quickly to changes in temperature, acidity, and nutrient availability. The patterns of ocean color, seen from space, reveal the complex interactions between physical ocean processes and the biological communities they support. Circular patterns show eddies spinning off major currents, creating isolated ecosystems that can last for weeks or months. Long, winding trails of green or blue mark the boundaries between water masses, with different temperatures or chemical compositions. The ocean doesn't just have color, it also has sound, as we discussed earlier with whale songs and mysterious recordings like the bloop. But there's another acoustic phenomenon that has puzzled sailors for centuries, the so-called singing sands or barking sands found on certain beaches. When walked upon or disturbed by wind, these sands produce sounds ranging from squeaks to deep booming notes that can be heard for miles. The phenomenon occurs only with very specific sand composition and moisture content, making it relatively rare despite extensive coastlines worldwide. Scientists believe the sound results from shear forces causing sand grains to rub against each other, with each grain's coating of silica gel acting as a resonator. Marco Polo described this phenomenon in his travels, and it appears in legends from cultures across the globe. These singing coastlines remind us that even the most familiar aspects of the ocean can contain unexpected wonders and mysteries. Another coastal mystery can be found in the so-called sailing stones of Death Valley, rocks that appear to move across a dry lake bed without human or animal intervention. Though not an ocean phenomenon directly, these stones move only when the dry lake bed floods and then freezes, creating conditions similar to a frozen ocean surface. Thin sheets of ice form around the rocks, and light winds then push them across the slippery mud, leaving distinctive trails behind. Similar phenomena have been observed on certain beaches, where large pebbles or cobbles move during specific tidal and weather conditions. These walking beach stones create patterns in the sand that have sometimes been misinterpreted as evidence of intelligent design or supernatural forces. The explanation, while now understood, is no less wondrous, a perfect combination of natural forces creating an illusion of independent movement. Nature continually reminds us that phenomena that seem impossible or magical often have explanations that are equally fascinating in their complexity. Let's return to the deep sea for one of its most bizarre inhabitants, the barrelly fish, sometimes called the spookfish for its ghostly appearance. This remarkable creature has a transparent head filled with fluid, through which it can look upward with tubular, extremely light-sensitive eyes. These specialized eyes can rotate within the transparent shield, allowing the fish to look forward when hunting or upward when searching for prey silhouetted against the faint light from above. The barrelay lives at depths between 2,000 and 2,600 feet, where the only light comes from bioluminescent organisms and the faintest remnants of sunlight. Its transparent head is believed to be an adaptation that allows it to collect as much light as possible while providing some protection from the stinging cells of the jellies it hunts. The fish was first described in 1939, but its transparent head wasn't discovered until 2004 because it had always been damaged when specimens were brought to the surface. It's a perfect example of how deep-sea creatures often have features so alien to our experience that we struggle to understand their function. Equally bizarre is the gulper eel, with its enormous mouth that can expand to swallow prey larger than itself. When closed, the mouth appears relatively normal, but when open, it reveals a cavernous black interior that seems impossibly large for the eel's body. The jaw is hinged in a way that allows it to open far wider than would be possible with mammalian anatomy. Special joints at the back of the skull and loosely connected bones allow the entire head to expand when the mouth opens. This adaptation lets the gulper eel take advantage of rare feeding opportunities in the food-scarce deep ocean. When a suitable prey item is encountered, perhaps only once in weeks or months, the eel can consume it regardless of size. This feast or famine approach to feeding is common among deep-sea predators, where meals are unpredictable and often widely spaced in time. Some deep-sea creatures employ hunting strategies so alien they seem to defy logic, like the stoplight loose-jaw dragonfish with its bizarre approach to stealth. This fish produces red light through specialized organs called photophores, unusual because red light doesn't penetrate deep water, making it invisible to most deep-sea creatures. The loose jaw can see this red light because of special adaptations in its eyes, essentially giving it night vision that its prey and predators lack. It's like having a flashlight that only you can see, allowing you to hunt without alerting either prey or potential threats. The loose jaw part of its name comes from another strange adaptation. Its jaw is attached to its skull by a hinge with no floor, allowing it to swing down and engulf prey. This reduces water resistance when the mouth opens, creating less pressure wave for potential prey to detect. These combined adaptations make it one of the most sophisticated ambush predators in the deep sea, a perfect example of how evolution creates solutions to the extreme challenges of this environment. The deep sea isn't just home to bizarre individual species, it also hosts some of the strangest symbiotic relationships on the planet. Consider the yeti crab, which grows bacteria on its specially adapted hairy claws, then harvests and eats these bacteria when they've multiplied sufficiently. It's essentially farming its own food in one of the most hostile environments on Earth, using chemicals from hydrothermal vents to fertilize its bacterial gardens. Another example is the relationship between certain deep-sea anglerfish males and females. The tiny male permanently attaches to the much larger female, eventually fusing his circulatory system with hers and degenerating until he's little more than a sperm-producing appendage. This extreme sexual parasitism ensures reproductive success in the vastness of the deep ocean, where finding a mate twice would be nearly impossible. These relationships highlight how the unusual conditions of the deep ocean drive the evolution of equally unusual biological solutions. Even the way deep-sea creatures reproduce can seem alien to our surface-dwelling perspective. Many species release their eggs or sperm into the water column in synchronized events triggered by lunar cycles, seasonal changes, or other environmental cues. This strategy, called broadcast spawning, increases the chances of successful fertilization in environments where potential mates are few and far between. Some deep-sea octopuses lay their eggs on hydrothermal vents, using the heat to speed up embryonic development in the otherwise frigid deep waters. One species was observed guarding its eggs for over 4 years, the longest brooding period known for any animal on Earth. The mother octopus didn't feed during this entire time, slowly starving as she protected her offspring until they hatched. These reproductive strategies represent incredible evolutionary adaptations to the challenges of bringing new life into one of Earth's most extreme environments. The mysteries of the ocean extend beyond biology to include some of the strangest physical phenomena on our planet. Ocean internal waves can reach heights of over 300 feet, yet remain completely invisible at the surface. These massive waves occur at the boundary between water layers of different densities, usually due to temperature or salinity differences. They can travel for thousands of miles, affecting nutrient distribution, sediment transport, and even submarine navigation. A submarine caught in the trough of a large internal wave might suddenly find itself hundreds of feet deeper than expected, with potentially catastrophic consequences. These hidden giants highlight how much of the ocean's behavior happens out of sight, influencing everything from climate to marine ecosystems in ways we're only beginning to understand. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine these invisible titans moving silently through the depths, their passage marked only by subtle shifts in temperature and current. Equally mysterious are ocean eddies, massive whirlpools that can span hundreds of miles and persist for months or even years. These spinning bodies of water break off from major ocean currents, carrying their distinct temperature and chemical signatures across vast distances. Warm core eddies spin clockwise in the northern hemisphere, creating isolated pockets of warmer water that can sustain tropical marine life far outside their normal range. Cold core eddies spin counterclockwise, bringing nutrient-rich, deeper water toward the surface and creating temporary oases of productivity in otherwise barren areas. These ocean whirlpools are so large they can be seen from space, appearing as circular patterns in temperature or color data from satellites. They play crucial roles in distributing heat, nutrients, and even plastic pollution throughout the global ocean system. Their unpredictable nature and enormous influence make them one of the most significant challenges in modeling ocean behavior and climate. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most enigmatic features: underwater waterfalls, where water appears to cascade into the depths, despite already being underwater. The Denmark Strait Cataract between Greenland and Iceland is the world's largest underwater waterfall, dwarfing anything on land. Cold, dense water from the Arctic flows over a massive underwater ridge and plunges nearly 11,500 feet down the continental slope. An estimated 175 million cubic feet of water per second flows over this submarine precipice, more than 350 times the volume of Niagara Falls. The waterfall isn't visible in the conventional sense, since both the falling water and its surroundings are, well, water. But the density difference creates a distinct boundary that behaves much like a waterfall on land, complete with turbulence and mixing at the base. These submarine cataracts play crucial roles in global ocean circulation, helping drive the currents that distribute heat around our planet. Speaking of ocean circulation, let's consider the global conveyor belt, a planetary-scale system of currents that connects all the world's oceans. This system moves water around the globe in a continuous loop driven by differences in temperature and salinity, a process oceanographers call thermohaline circulation. Warm surface water flows northward in the Atlantic, releases heat to the atmosphere, and becomes colder and denser. This dense water sinks to the ocean floor and flows southward, eventually circulating through the Indian and Pacific Oceans before warming, rising, and returning to the Atlantic. A complete circuit can take about 1,000 years, meaning water currently rising in the Pacific might have last seen the surface during the medieval period. This global conveyor belt is essentially Earth's central heating and cooling system, moderating climate and distributing nutrients throughout the world's oceans. Changes to this circulation pattern could have profound effects on climate worldwide, potentially cooling Europe while warming other regions. The deepest parts of the ocean circulation system involve water masses that form in only a few specific locations around Antarctica and in the North Atlantic. When surface water in these regions becomes cold and salty enough, it sinks to the ocean floor and begins flowing along the bottom like underwater rivers. These abyssal currents move incredibly slowly, often just a few centimeters per second, but their volume is so vast they transport millions of cubic meters of water every second. They carry oxygen to the deepest parts of the ocean, allowing life to exist even in trenches miles below the surface. Without this deep circulation, much of the ocean floor would be an anoxic wasteland, unable to support the diverse ecosystems we now know exist there. The delicate balance of temperature and salinity that drives this circulation could be disrupted by climate change, with potentially far-reaching consequences for deep ocean life. As you drift towards sleep, imagine these slow, silent rivers flowing along the ocean floor, part of a global circulation that has operated continuously for millions of years. Let's explore a different type of ocean mystery now, one that sits at the boundary between physical oceanography and biology. The deep scattering layer is a phenomenon first detected by sonar during World War II, a false seafloor that appeared to rise toward the surface at night and sink during the day. Scientists eventually discovered this wasn't a physical feature, but a dense layer of marine organisms participating in the largest migration on the planet. Trillions of small fish, squid, crustaceans, and other creatures rise from depths of up to 3,000 feet each night to feed near the surface, then return to the deep before dawn. This daily vertical migration helps these organisms avoid visual predators while still accessing the food-rich surface waters. The biomass involved in this migration is estimated to be greater than the total biomass of all land animals combined. It's a perfect example of how the ocean can hide entire ecosystems in plain sight, revealing them only when we develop the right technology to detect them. Some ocean mysteries remain unsolved despite decades of research, like the strange case of milky seas, rare phenomena where vast areas of ocean surface glow with a steady white light. Unlike more common bioluminescent displays that flash or sparkle, milky seas produce a continuous, uniform glow that can persist for days and cover thousands of square miles. They've been reported by sailors for centuries, but were often dismissed as tall tales until satellite imagery confirmed their existence in 2005. Scientists believe they're caused by massive colonies of luminous bacteria associated with algal blooms, but the exact mechanisms remain poorly understood. These glowing seas have been incorporated into maritime folklore around the world, sometimes interpreted as supernatural omens or portents. The phenomenon is so rare and unpredictable that scientific opportunities to study it directly have been extremely limited. As technology improves, particularly satellite imaging capabilities, we may finally solve the mystery of these ghostly glowing waters. The ocean also preserves mysteries from human history, like the fate of ships and aircraft that have disappeared in circumstances that continue to puzzle experts. The U.S. Cyclops vanished in March 1918 while transiting the Bermuda Triangle with 306 crew members aboard, the single largest loss of life in U.S. naval history not related to combat. No distress call was sent, no wreckage was ever found, and the ship simply ceased to exist somewhere between Barbados and the Maryland coast. Theories range from structural failure to capsizing in a sudden storm, from enemy action to more esoteric explanations involving the Bermuda Triangle. The ship's captain had a reputation for eccentric behavior, and the vessel was carrying a heavy cargo of manganese ore, potentially affecting its stability. Without any wreckage or survivors, the exact circumstances of the Cyclops' disappearance remain one of the most enduring mysteries in maritime history. The ocean keeps its secrets well, sometimes preserving them beyond our ability to recover the truth. Even more recent disappearances continue to baffle experts, like Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, which vanished in March 2014 with 239 people aboard. The Boeing 777 disappeared from radar while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, triggering the largest and most expensive search in aviation history. Satellite data indicated the plane flew for hours after deviating from its planned route, eventually crashing somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. Despite years of searching and the recovery of a few confirmed pieces of wreckage that washed ashore on Indian Ocean islands, the main wreckage has never been found. The ocean in this region is up to 5 miles deep, with underwater mountains, ridges, and valleys that make search operations extraordinarily difficult. Without the flight recorders, the reasons for the aircraft's diversion from its course and its ultimate fate remain speculative. The vastness of the ocean once again demonstrates its capacity to hide even large objects like a modern jetliner, potentially forever. The ocean's ability to preserve history extends to natural disasters as well, like the massive tsunami that struck Japan in 2011 following the Tohoku earthquake. This catastrophic wave reached heights of over 130 feet in some areas, traveling up to 6 miles inland and claiming nearly 20,000 lives. The power of this tsunami was so great that it broke off icebergs in Antarctica, more than 8,000 miles away from the earthquake epicenter. Debris from the disaster washed up on North American shores for years afterward, including fishing vessels, docks, and personal belongings. Some of this debris carried living Japanese marine organisms, creating concern about invasive species establishing themselves in new environments. The ocean, which delivered such devastating destruction, also became the medium for carrying evidence of the event across the entire Pacific basin. This dual role, as both destroyer and preserver, illustrates the ocean's fundamental position in Earth's systems, connecting distant shores through its constant motion. The ocean preserves more ancient disasters as well, including evidence of past tsunamis that occurred long before written records. Geological deposits called tsunami stones can be found in coastal areas worldwide, indicating where massive waves have reached in centuries past. In Japan, some of these stones bear inscriptions warning future generations not to build below certain points, ancient disaster management guidance that was sometimes ignored before the 2011 tsunami. Similar evidence can be found in sediment layers along coastlines globally, allowing scientists to reconstruct tsunami history going back thousands of years. This long-term record helps assess risks for coastal communities and infrastructure, though it's often overlooked in development planning. The ocean's memory, encoded in these geological signatures, offers warnings from the past that we would be wise to heed. As you drift towards sleep, consider how the ocean connects us not just across space, but across time, carrying messages from ancient disasters to inform our present choices. Another mysterious aspect of our oceans is their role in global weather patterns, particularly the El Niño Southern Oscillation (NSO) cycle. This complex interaction between ocean and atmosphere occurs every 2-7 years, when warm water that normally pools in the western Pacific shifts eastward towards South America. This seemingly small change in ocean temperature patterns triggers global weather disruptions, droughts in Australia and Indonesia, floods in Peru and Ecuador, and altered hurricane patterns in the Atlantic. Despite decades of study, scientists still cannot predict exactly when an El Niño event will begin or how strong it will be. The ocean's vast thermal inertia means it responds slowly to changes, creating momentum in the climate system that plays out over months and years. These long-term oscillations interact with human-caused climate change in ways we're still working to understand fully. The ocean doesn't just respond to atmospheric changes, it drives them, often in ways that remain partially unpredictable despite our best models. Even more mysterious is the ocean's role in longer-term climate patterns like the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, a cycle of warming and cooling that occurs over 20-40-year periods. This oscillation affects rainfall patterns across North America, influences hurricane frequency, and even impacts African drought cycles thousands of miles away. Unlike El Niño, which is relatively well understood, the exact mechanisms driving these multi-decade oscillations remain somewhat theoretical. The timescales involved make them difficult to study. A complete cycle takes longer than many scientific careers. These long-term patterns highlight how the ocean operates on timeframes, often inconvenient for human observation and understanding. Our oceans have rhythms measured not just in days or years, but in decades and centuries, pulses that have influenced human history in ways we're only beginning to appreciate. As your consciousness fades towards sleep, imagine these slow oceanic heartbeats, these patient cycles that have continued uninterrupted for millennia. Let's explore one final mystery of the deep, the strange case of the immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis darni. This small hydrozoan, barely visible to the naked eye, has developed a biological superpower that sounds like science fiction, true biological immortality. When faced with environmental stress, aging, or physical damage, it can revert its cells to an earlier developmental stage and begin its life cycle anew. It's the equivalent of a butterfly turning back into a caterpillar, then growing up again, a process it can apparently repeat indefinitely. In laboratory conditions, these jellyfish have cycled from mature adult back to immature polyp stage dozens of times, showing no signs of aging or deterioration. While predation and disease still claim them in the wild, from a purely biological perspective, they appear to be immortal. These tiny translucent creatures floating in our oceans may be the closest thing to eternal life our planet has produced. The immortal jellyfish reminds us that the ocean continues to surprise us, defying our expectations and challenging our understanding of what's possible in nature. For all our technology and scientific advancement, we've explored less than 5% of our oceans in any detail. The remaining 95% holds mysteries we haven't even begun to imagine, new species, new phenomena, new insights into how our planet functions. The deep trenches, the abyssal plains, the mid-ocean ridges, these vast regions remain largely unknown, waiting for future generations to discover their secrets. As you finally drift off to sleep, carried away on ocean currents of consciousness, remember that beneath the surface of our world lies another world entirely. A world of eternal darkness and crushing pressure, of bioluminescent galaxies and creatures that seem born from dreams or nightmares. A world that has existed for billions of years before us and will likely continue long after we're gone, patient and mysterious, the true final frontier of our home planet. Let's now drift toward a phenomenon that has puzzled sailors and scientists alike, the strange occurrence of rogue holes in the ocean. These are perfect circular areas of disturbed water that appear suddenly in otherwise calm seas, as if something massive has surfaced or submerged. They can span hundreds of feet in diameter and remain visible for minutes or even hours before disappearing as mysteriously as they formed. Satellite imagery has captured these phenomena, confirming they're not merely sailors' tales or optical illusions. Scientific explanations range from methane gas bubbles rising from the seafloor to complex interactions between ocean currents and underwater topography. Some researchers suggest they might be caused by sudden releases of gas hydrates, those flammable ice deposits we discussed earlier. Others propose they could result from underwater landslides or even biological activity, like massive schools of fish moving in coordinated patterns. Whatever their cause, these rogue holes remind us that even the ocean's surface, the part we can actually see, still holds mysteries we cannot fully explain. They appear without warning, disrupt the expected patterns of waves and currents, then vanish without trace. In earlier centuries, such phenomena fed into maritime superstitions about sea monsters and ocean deities, demanding respect or tribute. Modern science has replaced these supernatural explanations, but hasn't entirely solved the mystery of why and how these perfect circles form. Perhaps most intriguing is their apparent randomness. They follow no predictable pattern in time or location. They're a reminder that the ocean operates according to complex rules we've only begun to understand. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these perfect circles appearing on a calm ocean surface, like ripples in the fabric of reality itself. Let's sink deeper now, to explore the phenomenon known as marine snow, a continuous shower of organic debris that falls from the upper ocean to the deep. This gentle underwater blizzard consists of dead plankton, fecal matter, mucus, dust, and other particles slowly drifting down through the water column. It falls at a rate of just a few hundred feet per day, meaning particles can take weeks to reach the seafloor in the deepest parts of the ocean. Along the way, this marine snow feeds countless organisms that filter it from the water or collect it where it settles. Without this constant organic rain, the deep ocean would be a biological desert, as sunlight cannot penetrate to drive photosynthesis at these depths. Marine snow essentially connects the sunlit surface world with the dark abyss, transferring energy and carbon from one realm to the other. In some ways, it's the deep ocean's life support system, a slow-motion supply chain that has operated continuously for billions of years. What's particularly fascinating about marine snow is how it preserves a record of ocean conditions and events over time. As particles settle on the seafloor, they build up layers that can be read like pages in a history book. Sudden increases in marine snow can indicate plankton blooms or mass mortality events in the waters above. Changes in composition can reveal shifts in ocean chemistry, temperature, or the species inhabiting different depths. Scientists use core samples of these sediments to reconstruct past ocean conditions going back millions of years. They can identify ancient climate shifts, extinction events, and even the aftermath of the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. The ocean floor is essentially Earth's most complete historical archive, written in layers of what once was marine snow. Speaking of the ocean floor, let's explore one of its most peculiar features: fields of perfectly spherical manganese nodules that cover vast areas of the abyssal plains. These strange formations look almost manufactured. Dark, potato-sized spheres scattered across the seafloor, like marbles dropped by some giant hand. They form over millions of years as dissolved minerals in seawater gradually accumulate around a small nucleus, perhaps a shark tooth or fragment of shell. Growing at a rate of just a few millimeters per million years, these nodules are among the slowest forming natural objects on Earth. They're primarily composed of manganese and iron, but also contain smaller amounts of copper, nickel, and rare earth elements valuable to modern technology. This mineral wealth has sparked interest in deep-sea mining, raising concerns about disrupting ecosystems that have evolved around these nodule fields. These ancient, slow-growing spheres support communities of organisms specially adapted to use their hard surfaces in an otherwise soft, muddy environment. The creatures that live among these nodules are as strange as their habitat, like the bizarre xenophyophores, single-celled organisms that can grow to several inches across. Despite being just one cell, these giants of the microbial world create complex protective structures from sediment particles they collect from the surrounding environment. They essentially build their own shells grain by grain, creating intricate homes that protect their delicate cellular body. Some species incorporate specific materials like sponge spicules or particular types of sand, showing surprising selectivity for organisms with no brain or nervous system. They're among the largest single-celled organisms on Earth, challenging our understanding of what's possible within the constraints of a single cell. In the stable, unchanging environment of the deep ocean floor, these strange life forms have evolved to extraordinary sizes that would be impossible in more dynamic habitats. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine these bizarre single cells slowly constructing their protective homes in the quiet darkness of the abyssal plain. Among the most spectacular sights in the deep ocean are the swirling bioluminescent displays of certain ctenophores, or comb jellies. Unlike true jellyfish, these transparent, walnut-sized creatures move using rows of tiny hair-like cilia that refract light like prisms, creating rainbow effects even in the dim blue of shallow waters. But in the darkness of the deep, some species put on light shows that rival anything humans have created. They produce waves of blue-green light that pulse along their bodies, creating patterns so hypnotic they appear almost intelligent in design. These displays serve multiple purposes: attracting prey, confusing predators, finding mates, or communicating with others of their kind. Some deep-sea ctenophores can even separate parts of their light-producing tissues, leaving behind decoys that continue to flash while they make their escape. It's a sophisticated defense mechanism from an animal with no brain, just a simple nerve net that somehow coordinates these complex displays. The deep ocean doesn't just host bizarre individual species, it's home to entire communities that seem to defy our understanding of what's possible. In 2020, scientists discovered an extensive reef ecosystem thriving under the Antarctic ice shelf, in perpetual darkness and extreme cold. This shouldn't be possible according to conventional understanding, as reefs typically depend on photosynthesis and warmer waters. Yet here were sponges, coral-like animals, and other fixed organisms densely covering rocks on the seafloor, 160 miles from the nearest open water. How they get enough food to survive remains a mystery, as the currents in this region are too weak to transport much organic matter from distant productive areas. This discovery suggests there might be fundamentally different types of ecosystems in the deep ocean that operate on principles we haven't yet grasped. Each such finding forces us to reconsider the limits of life and adaptability in our oceans. Let's dive now into one of the ocean's most persistent mysteries, the lost city of Atlantis, which has captivated human imagination for thousands of years. First described by Plato around 360 BCE, Atlantis was supposedly an advanced civilization that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, people have searched for evidence of this lost continent, proposing locations ranging from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to Antarctica. Modern geologists have largely concluded that no continent-sized landmass could have simply disappeared in human history, suggesting Plato's account was allegorical rather than literal. However, there are numerous documented cases of coastal cities and settlements that have been submerged due to earthquakes, volcanic activity, or rising sea levels. The ancient Egyptian cities of Thonis, Heraclion, and Canopus lay hidden beneath the Mediterranean for over 1,200 years before their rediscovery in the late 20th century. Perhaps Atlantis was inspired by real catastrophes and sunken settlements, its story growing more elaborate with each retelling. The ocean floor holds many real sunken cities and structures, creating an entire field of study known as underwater archaeology. In the Bay of Cambay off India's western coast, sonar surveys have revealed geometric structures buried in sediment that some believe could be ruins over 9,000 years old. Off the coast of Cuba in the Yucatan Channel, researchers using sonar detected what appeared to be an ancient urban complex nearly 700 meters below the surface. Divers exploring cenotes, or water-filled sinkholes, in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula have found human remains, pottery, and even roads dating back to Maya civilization. Japan's mysterious Yonaguni Monument features massive stone structures with straight edges and right angles that some archaeologists believe show signs of human modification. Whether these structures are natural formations, ancient ruins, or some combination of both remains hotly debated among scientists. The technical challenges of underwater archaeology, limited visibility, crushing pressure, and corrosive saltwater make definitive answers difficult to obtain. One of the most significant underwater archaeological discoveries came in 1985, when the wreck of RMS Titanic was finally located 73 years after its sinking. The famous ocean liner lies in two main pieces at a depth of about 12,500 feet, surrounded by a debris field that stretches over 5,000 feet along the seafloor. The cold, low-oxygen environment of the deep North Atlantic has preserved many aspects of the wreck, though bacteria are slowly consuming the ship's iron hull. Scientists estimate that within 50 to 100 years, the recognizable ship will collapse entirely, leaving only a rust stain on the ocean floor. Time-lapse photography between different expeditions already shows noticeable deterioration of the wreck structure. The Titanic has become a poignant example of how even the most massive human constructions are ultimately reclaimed by the ocean. As the ship slowly dissolves into rust, it reminds us of our own impermanence against the timeless backdrop of the deep ocean. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most dangerous and mysterious phenomena, underwater methane eruptions that may be linked to ship disappearances. In certain areas of the ocean floor, particularly along continental margins, vast deposits of methane remain frozen in ice-like structures called methane hydrates. When these deposits destabilize, perhaps due to seismic activity or changing water temperatures, they can release enormous bubbles of methane gas. A ship caught above such an eruption would suddenly find itself floating on water with significantly reduced density, essentially creating a momentary hole in the ocean. Without sufficient buoyancy, a vessel could sink before the crew had any chance to react or send distress signals. This phenomenon has been proposed as a possible explanation for some vessels that have vanished without trace in areas like the Bermuda Triangle. Laboratory experiments have confirmed that bubbling gas can indeed sink model ships, lending credibility to this once-dismissed theory. The danger doesn't end with sinking ships. These methane eruptions may pose larger threats to our planet's systems. Methane is a greenhouse gas roughly 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. Scientists worry that warming oceans could trigger a feedback loop, where rising temperatures destabilize methane hydrates, releasing more greenhouse gases that further warm the planet. Evidence from Earth's geological past suggests similar methane releases may have played roles in prehistoric extinction events. The seafloor contains an estimated 10 times more carbon in methane hydrates than in all known fossil fuel deposits combined. Even a partial release of this methane could significantly accelerate climate change beyond current projections. These frozen deposits, stable for thousands of years, might become ticking time bombs as our oceans continue to warm. The ocean doesn't just hide physical dangers, it also conceals sounds so strange they border on the supernatural. In 1997, researchers recorded a sound near Antarctica that became known as the bloop, an ultra-low frequency noise louder than any known animal sound. Initially, some speculated it might be from an unknown creature, something massive beyond imagination, perhaps a real-life sea monster. The sound was eventually attributed to the cracking of ice shelves, but not everyone is convinced by this explanation. Other unexplained ocean sounds have been recorded and given names like Julia, slowdown, and upsweep, each with unique characteristics that defy easy explanation. These mysterious noises travel for hundreds or even thousands of miles through the ocean's natural sound channels. They remind us that the ocean has its own voice, complex, often indecipherable, and occasionally spine-chilling. Among the most persistent ocean mysteries are reports of megafauna thought extinct or unknown to science, modern-day sea monsters that occasionally surface in the human consciousness. Fishermen in South Africa reported catching a coelacanth in 1938, a fish believed extinct for 65 million years, known only from fossils until that moment. This living fossil demonstrated that large creatures could indeed remain hidden from science, particularly in the ocean's more inaccessible regions. In the 1970s, Japanese fishing vessels hauled up decomposing carcasses of unidentified large creatures that became known as globsters. While later DNA testing identified most as basking sharks or whale blubber, their initial discovery created genuine scientific confusion. Even today, approximately 2,000 new marine species are described by science each year, some quite large and many from deep water environments. The potential for truly spectacular discoveries remains, hidden in the vast, unexplored regions of our oceans. Perhaps the most famous modern sea monster is the giant squid, long dismissed as sailors' superstition, until specimens began washing ashore. These creatures can reach lengths of over 40 feet and have the largest eyes of any animal, up to 10 inches in diameter. Yet despite their massive size, the first images of a living giant squid in its natural habitat weren't captured until 2004, and the first video footage came only in 2012. Their deepwater habitat, combined with their apparent rarity and elusive behavior, kept them hidden from human observation, despite centuries of maritime activity. Some scientists believe even larger specimens exist than those we've documented, based on the size of sucker marks found on sperm whales. The giant squid's close relative, the the colossal squid, may grow heavier though shorter, with rotating hooks rather than simple suckers on its tentacles. These real-life sea monsters remind us that the line between maritime legend and biological reality is often blurrier than we might think. Let's explore one of the most peculiar deep-sea communities, whale falls, the massive oases of life created when a whale dies and sinks to the ocean floor. When a whale's massive carcass, potentially weighing up to 200 tons, settles on the deep-sea floor, it creates a bonanza of food in an otherwise nutrient-poor environment. The decomposition proceeds through distinct ecological stages, each hosting unique communities of organisms specially adapted to exploit different aspects of the carcass. First come the scavengers, hagfish, sleeper sharks, and crabs that consume the soft tissues, stripping the carcass to bone within months or years depending on its size. Next, opportunistic creatures colonize the bones and surrounding sediments enriched by organic matter that seeped out during the initial decay. Finally, sulfophilic bacteria break down lipids in the whale bones, releasing hydrogen sulfide that supports chemosynthetic communities similar to those found at hydrothermal vents. This final stage can last for decades, creating an island of life that hosts specialized species found nowhere else on Earth. Scientists have identified over 400 species that appear specialized to live on whale falls, many of which are found nowhere else. The Alcidax genus of worms, commonly known as zombie worms or bone-eating worms, have no mouths or digestive systems. Instead, they drill into whale bones using acid, then deploy root-like structures to access nutrients with the help of symbiotic bacteria. Different Alcidax species specialize in different parts of the skeleton or different stages of decomposition, creating a complex ecological succession. These highly specialized creatures must somehow locate new whale falls across vast distances of seafloor when their current home is finally depleted. How they accomplish this remarkable feat of navigation remains poorly understood. Another deep-sea mystery. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these islands of life glowing in the darkness of the deep ocean, temporary oases created by death. Now let's explore what might be the strangest environment on Earth, underwater lakes and rivers that exist within the ocean itself. These formations occur when water with extremely high salt content settles into depressions on the seafloor, creating distinct boundaries that don't mix with surrounding seawater. The boundary between these supersaline lakes and normal seawater is so distinct that it reflects sonar like a solid surface, confusing early seafloor mapping efforts. Some of these underwater lakes even have waves on their surfaces, created by the movement of deep ocean currents across the density boundary. The shorelines of these lakes host unique ecosystems adapted to the chemical gradient between normal seawater and the toxic oxygen-free brine. Mussels, tube worms, and specialized bacteria cluster along these underwater shorelines, creating biological zones reminiscent of land-based lake ecosystems. Divers who visit these underwater lakes report an eerie experience. They can actually float on the surface of the lake, unable to penetrate the dense brine layer. Some of the most spectacular underwater rivers flow along the ocean floor in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, where freshwater moves through underwater cave systems. Since freshwater is less dense than saltwater, these rivers maintain their integrity for considerable distances as they flow toward the ocean. Divers exploring these underwater rivers witness the surreal sight of trees, leaves, and debris floating along the river boundary as if on a surface stream. The visual effect is disorienting. A river within an ocean, complete with its own current, banks, and even waterfalls, where it cascades into deeper basins. Hydrogen sulfide often concentrates in these rivers, creating a misty appearance that enhances their otherworldly quality. These sulfidic haloclines appear to glow when illuminated by dive lights, creating what cave divers call the light of the underworld. Swimming through these underwater rivers is perhaps the closest humans can come to experiencing an alien environment without leaving Earth. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most beautiful mysteries, the perfect hexagonal columns of the Giant's Causeway and similar formations around the world. These remarkable structures consist of tens of thousands of interlocking basalt columns, most with 6 perfectly straight sides. They formed when ancient lava flows cooled rapidly, creating contraction cracks that propagated in the geometrically most efficient pattern, a hexagonal network. Similar formations can be found underwater in multiple locations, where they were later submerged by rising sea levels. The mathematical precision of these formations led to legends in many cultures. In Ireland, they were said to be the work of the giant Finn McCool, building a bridge to Scotland. In reality, they demonstrate how fundamental physical laws can create perfect geometric patterns in nature without any conscious design. As you grow sleepier, imagine these perfect columns extending down into the darkness of the ocean, their hexagonal tops disappearing into the murky depths. The ocean doesn't just hold geological wonders, it contains biological phenomena so strange they seem almost supernatural. Consider the synchronous flashing of certain marine bioluminescent organisms, where thousands of individuals pulse their light in perfect rhythm. This coordinated light show occurs without any central conductor, each organism responding to the flashes of its neighbors in a massive feedback loop. The Dinolagellate Linguldineum polyhedrum can create waves of blue light that travel across the water surface as if directed by some intelligent force. Certain squid species can coordinate the flashing of thousands of light-producing cells to create moving patterns across their skin. These synchronous displays create hypnotic effects that may confuse predators, attract mates, or serve communication purposes we don't yet understand. The ability of simple organisms to create such complex, coordinated patterns reminds us that complexity doesn't always require advanced intelligence. Deep beneath the ocean surface lies another mystery, the midnight zone's missing carbon, a puzzle that has confounded oceanographers for decades. When scientists measure the carbon that sinks from surface waters and compare it to what reaches the deep ocean floor, a significant portion seems to simply disappear. This missing carbon should be somewhere in the midnight zone, the ocean layer between approximately 3,300 and 13,000 feet deep. Recent research suggests that gelatinous animals like jellyfish, ctenophores, and siphonophores might be responsible for this carbon sink. These creatures, composed mostly of water with minimal solid structure, are easily destroyed by traditional sampling methods, and thus have been chronically underrepresented in ocean biomass estimates. New studies indicate they might make up over 25% of the total marine biomass in some areas, far more than previously believed. These transparent, fragile organisms may be processing an enormous amount of carbon through their collective metabolism, solving the mystery of the missing carbon. Among the most beautiful and mysterious underwater phenomena are cold seep ecosystems, where methane and hydrogen sulfide leak from the seafloor. Unlike the superheated hydrothermal vents, cold seeps release these chemicals at ambient temperature, creating more stable but equally alien environments. Around these seeps grow forests of tube worms up to 10 feet tall, with bright red plumes that extend from white tubes anchored in the sediment. These worms have no mouths or digestive systems. Instead, they host internal bacteria that convert methane or hydrogen sulfide into energy. Some individual tube worms at cold seeps are estimated to be over 250 years old, making them some of the longest-lived, non-colonial animals on Earth. The chemicals that would be toxic to most life forms become the foundation of a thriving ecosystem through the miracle of symbiosis. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine these crimson-plumed forests swaying in the deep ocean currents, a splash of vibrant color in the eternal midnight. The deepest parts of our oceans may harbor life forms so different from surface organisms that they constitute a shadow biosphere, a second tree of life evolving independently on the same planet. Some scientists speculate that life might have originated multiple times on Earth, with one lineage giving rise to all known organisms, while others remain hidden in extreme environments. The discovery of organisms that use arsenic rather than phosphorus in their DNA, or that can substitute sulfur for oxygen in their metabolism, hints at this possibility. If such shadow biospheres exist anywhere on Earth, the extreme isolation and unique conditions of the deep ocean trenches would make them likely locations. Organisms in these environments face pressures exceeding 1,000 atmospheres, near freezing temperatures, and minimal energy inputs, conditions that would drive extreme evolutionary adaptations. The discovery of such fundamentally different life forms would revolutionize our understanding of biology and greatly expand our search parameters for extraterrestrial life. It would mean that life is even more adaptable and resilient than we already believe, capable of finding biochemical pathways we haven't even imagined. Some of the ocean's greatest mysteries involve its interactions with the atmosphere, particularly the phenomenon of ocean memory that helps regulate our climate. The ocean has an enormous thermal capacity, absorbing and releasing heat much more slowly than the atmosphere or land surfaces. This creates a kind of planetary memory that buffers temperature changes and carries the imprint of past climate conditions for decades or even centuries. Scientists can read this memory in the temperature patterns of deep ocean currents that haven't been at the surface since the Industrial Revolution began. As these currents gradually return to the surface through the global conveyor belt, they bring with them the thermal conditions of a previous era. This oceanic memory means that even if we could instantly stop all greenhouse gas emissions, the climate would continue changing due to heat already stored in the ocean. The slow, patient rhythm of this oceanic memory operates on timescales that human minds struggle to fully comprehend. One particularly haunting aspect of the ocean's memory lies in the gradual release of the heat it has been absorbing. Over 90% of the excess heat generated by human greenhouse gas emissions has been absorbed by the oceans rather than warming the atmosphere. This has temporarily buffered atmospheric temperature increases, but the ocean cannot absorb heat indefinitely without consequences. As the ocean's capacity to absorb heat diminishes, more warming will be expressed in atmospheric temperatures rather than being sequestered in the depths. Additionally, warmer oceans hold less dissolved oxygen, potentially creating more dead zones where marine life cannot survive. The expansion of seawater, as it warms, combined with melting ice sheets, drives sea level rise that threatens coastal communities worldwide. The ocean's thermal memory thus becomes a delayed response to human activities, delivering consequences decades after the actions that caused them. Let's explore another ocean phenomenon that borders on the supernatural, the strange case of sailing stones that move across underwater surfaces. Similar to the famous sliding rocks of Death Valley, stones on certain underwater slopes appear to move uphill against gravity, leaving trails in sediment that can be observed by divers. These underwater sailing stones have been documented in several locations, including the continental slope off the Bahamas and underwater volcanic slopes near Hawaii. The mechanism appears to involve a combination of gentle ocean currents, microbes that reduce friction, and the unique properties of fine-grained marine sediments. Some of these stones move several feet per year, creating distinct trails that curve and change direction as ocean currents shift. In certain conditions, fields of these stones create patterns that look almost intentional, as if arranged by some unseen hand. It's another reminder that natural processes can create seemingly impossible or designed phenomena through the interaction of simple physical forces. The ocean's vast expanses hide many strange interactions between species, including the bizarre case of killer whales that have learned to herd human fishing boats. Off the coast of Alaska, certain orcapods have developed a sophisticated technique for stealing fish from longline fisheries. These whales can hear the engines of fishing vessels from miles away and recognize the specific sounds made when fishermen begin hauling in their lines. They race to the boats and position themselves to grab fish from the hooks as they're being raised, sometimes taking nearly the entire catch. Most remarkably, some whales appear to herd fishing boats toward other members of their pod, positioning vessels where the group can most efficiently steal the fish. This behavior represents a level of social learning and coordination that challenges our understanding of non-human intelligence. It's a sophisticated cultural adaptation that has evolved over just a few decades in response to human fishing activities. Deep beneath Antarctic ice shelves, scientists have discovered another ocean mystery, hotspots of biodiversity that shouldn't exist according to conventional understanding. In 2021, researchers drilling through the Filchen-Ron ice shelf found a thriving community of sponges and other filter-feeding animals attached to a boulder on the seafloor. This discovery was shocking because these animals were living 160 miles from the open ocean, under 3,000 feet of ice, in complete darkness and near freezing temperatures. The mystery deepened when scientists realized there was no obvious food source that could support such a community in this location. The currents in this area are too weak to transport sufficient organic matter from distant, productive waters. These animals appear to be surviving on food sources we haven't identified, challenging our fundamental understanding of what's required to support complex life. Each such discovery reminds us how limited our understanding remains of what's possible in our oceans. Let's turn now to a different kind of ocean mystery, the unexplained animal behaviors that hint at senses and abilities beyond human comprehension. Certain sharks can detect electrical fields as weak as a few billionths of a volt, sensitive enough to detect the heartbeat of prey hidden under sand. Sea turtles navigate across thousands of miles of featureless ocean to return to the exact beaches where they were born, using the Earth's magnetic field as a map. Mantis shrimp can see types of light completely invisible to humans, including ultraviolet and polarized light, perceiving a world radically different from our own. Some deep-sea creatures appear to use quantum effects in their vision, allowing them to make use of the faintest bioluminescent signals. Dolphins can see through solid objects using echolocation, essentially creating detailed three-dimensional sonograms of their surroundings. These sensory abilities represent entire dimensions of reality that humans can only understand intellectually, never experience directly. Perhaps the most profound ocean mystery is one we rarely consider, the question of consciousness and experience in marine life. The octopus has a distributed nervous system with 2/3 of its neurons located in its arms rather than its central brain. This arrangement creates a fundamentally different type of mind, one where each arm has a degree of autonomous function and sensation. What is it like to experience the world through such a radically different nervous system, with multiple semi-independent centers of processing? Similarly, what is the subjective experience of a whale, whose brain has specialized cells for social cognition that humans lack entirely? These questions about other minds become even more profound when we consider creatures like the immortal jellyfish or giant clams that can live for centuries. The ocean contains forms of consciousness and experience so alien to our own that they stretch the limits of our empathy and understanding. As we near the end of our journey through the ocean's mysteries, let's consider perhaps the greatest enigma of all, the origin of life itself, which likely occurred in ancient seas. Around 4 billion years ago, in the early oceans of a young Earth, the complex chemistry that would eventually lead to life began to develop. The exact process remains unknown, but most scientists believe it involved the formation of self-replicating molecules in the primordial ocean. Hydrothermal vents may have provided the energy and mineral concentrations necessary for these early organic reactions. The protected environments of tide pools or volcanic hot springs might have allowed concentration of these molecules into more complex arrangements. Whatever the exact mechanism, the ocean served as both cradle and laboratory for the chemistry that would eventually lead to all life on Earth. In a very real sense, every living thing, including you as you drift towards sleep, carries the ancient ocean within, in the chemistry of our cells and the composition of our blood. The most profound mystery might be how little we truly know about our oceans, despite their fundamental importance to our planet and our own existence. We have mapped the surface of Mars, Venus, and the Moon in greater detail than we have mapped our own ocean floor. Approximately 80% of our ocean remains unmapped, unobserved, and unexplored with modern methods. We have better maps of the dark side of the Moon than we do of the deep ocean trenches, just off our coastlines. Current estimates suggest between 2/3 and 95% of all marine species remain undiscovered and uncatalogued. Some oceanographers believe we'll discover more new species in our oceans during the next century than we found in the last millennium. The greatest ocean mystery is simply how much remains unknown. How many creatures, phenomena, and discoveries await in the blue depths that cover most of our world. As you finally drift off to sleep, consider that your consciousness is slipping into a state not unlike the deep ocean itself, mysterious, mostly unexplored, governed by rules we only partially understand. Your dreams will take you to internal landscapes as alien and wondrous as any deep-sea ecosystem. Your mind will create its own bioluminescence, flashes of insight and imagery in the darkness of sleep. Like the ocean's creatures that rise to the surface at night to feed, your deepest thoughts will ascend into awareness before sinking back into the depths. The rhythmic sound of your breathing becomes like waves on a shore, marking the boundary between conscious and unconscious realms. Sleep well in the knowledge that while you rest, the ocean continues its ancient cycles, tides rising and falling, currents circling the globe, life flourishing in its depths. And perhaps, in your dreams, you'll visit those impossible realms where humans cannot go, the crushing depths, the eternal darkness, the alien landscapes of our planet's last true wilderness. Let's now drift toward one of the ocean's most surreal phenomena. Underwater mirages that confuse both human divers and marine life. Just as hot air can bend light above desert roads to create the illusion of water, temperature boundaries in the ocean can bend light to create false images. These thermoclines, sharp boundaries between water layers at different temperatures, act like lenses, distorting and multiplying objects seen through them. Divers report seeing ghost fish that appear to swim in impossible places or duplicate creatures that seem to be in two locations simultaneously. Some underwater mirages can make the seafloor appear much closer or farther than it actually is, a potentially dangerous illusion for divers. Naval researchers discovered these effects can even create acoustic shadows, where submarines can hide from sonar by positioning themselves in thermocline layers. These underwater optical illusions remind us that even our most basic sense vision can be thoroughly deceived by the ocean's physical properties. The ocean doesn't just distort light, it can create strange audio effects that have mystified sailors for centuries. The whistle of the sea is a phenomenon where certain coastal rock formations create flute-like sounds as waves force air through narrow channels. In some locations, underwater caverns amplify the low-frequency sounds of distant waves, creating booming noises that can be heard miles inland. Ocean acoustics can create sound channels, where certain frequencies travel extraordinary distances with minimal loss of energy. Whale songs entering these channels can potentially travel thousands of miles, allowing communication across entire ocean basins. During certain weather conditions, sound can reflect off the water surface in ways that create acoustic mirages, making distant ships sound as if they're just offshore. Before modern navigation, these acoustic anomalies contributed to maritime superstitions and legends of phantom ships or sirens calling from impossible distances. Speaking of phantom ships, let's explore the strange phenomenon of Fata Morgana complex mirages that can make objects appear to float above the horizon. These superior mirages occur when a layer of warm air sits above cooler air near the ocean surface, bending light rays downward in a curve that follows the Earth's curvature. The effect can make distant ships appear to float in the sky, or create the illusion of towering cliffs and castles rising from an otherwise empty horizon. These atmospheric phenomena are particularly common in polar regions, where temperature inversions between ice surfaces and air are frequent. Many historical reports of flying ships or floating islands likely resulted from these natural optical phenomena. The name Fata Morgana comes from the sorceress Morgan Le Fay of Arthurian legend, who was said to create floating castles to lure sailors to their doom. These mirages can be so convincing that they've led to inaccurate cartography, with non-existent islands appearing on maps for centuries before being disproven. Deep beneath the ocean surface lurks a different kind of mirage, false seafloors created by layers of hydrogen sulfide or methane hydrates. These chemical boundaries can be so sharp and reflective that sonar signals bounce off them as if they were solid surfaces, creating phantom bottoms on depth sounders. Early oceanographers were frequently confused by these false readings, which sometimes indicated impossible changes in depth over short distances. Marine creatures appear to use these chemical boundaries as navigational markers or hiding places, concentrating along the edges of these invisible layers. Some fish have developed specialized swim bladders that allow them to maintain neutral buoyancy precisely at these chemical interfaces. Certain bacteria thrive exactly at these boundaries, metabolizing compounds from both water masses and creating their own microscopic world between worlds. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these invisible floors in the ocean, planes of chemical difference that create worlds stacked upon worlds in the same water column. Let's explore another mysterious aspect of our oceans, the strange phenomenon of dead water, which has puzzled sailors since ancient times. This occurs when a layer of fresh water sits atop denser salt water, creating an internal boundary that can trap a ship's energy and dramatically slow its progress. Vessels caught in dead water report their engines straining while making almost no forward movement, as if some invisible hand were holding them back. What's actually happening is that the ship's movement creates waves at the underwater boundary between fresh and salt water, waves invisible from the surface. These internal waves absorb the vessel's energy, preventing it from gaining speed despite increased power to the engines. Polar explorers, like Fridtjof Nansen, documented this phenomenon in the early 20th century, describing how their ships seemed bewitched in certain Arctic waters. Modern science has confirmed these accounts using scale models in laboratory settings, demonstrating how remarkably the internal waves can sap a vessel's momentum. The ocean's invisible layers create other strange effects, including underwater waterfalls that dwarf anything seen on land. Off the coast of Mauritius, an optical illusion created by sand and silt patterns gives the appearance of an underwater waterfall, though it's actually just an effect of sediment moving across the ocean floor. But real underwater waterfalls do exist, massive cascades, where denser water literally falls through lighter water, completely invisible to the naked eye. The Denmark Strait Cataract between Greenland and Iceland features a drop of over 11,500 feet and a flow rate exceeding 5 million cubic meters per second. Cold, dense water from the Arctic literally plunges down the continental slope like a waterfall within the ocean itself. These invisible cataracts help drive the global ocean conveyor belt, the planetary scale circulation system that distributes heat around our world. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine these mighty falls in the ocean depths, silent, invisible giants that have flowed continuously for millions of years. Let's now descend to one of the strangest environments on Earth, the seafloor brine pools that dot the Gulf of Mexico and Mediterranean Sea. These pools of supersaline water form distinct basins on the ocean floor, with surfaces so well defined you could float a submarine on them. The water inside these pools is 4 to 8 times saltier than normal seawater, and often contains toxic concentrations of methane and hydrogen sulfide. Most marine creatures that stray into these pools are killed almost instantly, their bodies preserved by the brine in an eerie underwater graveyard. Yet remarkably, specialized microbes thrive in this toxic soup, and certain mussels and shrimp have evolved to harvest the energy-rich chemicals at the pool edges. Divers describe the experience of approaching these pools as surreal. The brine interface shimmers, like the surface of a normal pool seen from below. These lakes within oceans represent some of the most extreme environments on our planet, possibly analogous to conditions on moons like Europa or Enceladus. Another ocean mystery involves massive subsurface waves that can reach heights of 200 feet or more, yet remain completely invisible at the surface. These internal waves form at the boundary between water layers of different densities, and can travel for thousands of miles across ocean basins. They move much more slowly than surface waves, typically a few miles per hour, but contain enormous energy that affects everything from nutrient distribution to submarine operations. Satellite imagery can sometimes detect their surface expression as long lines of smooth water, alternating with rougher patches, known as slicks. These hidden giants may play crucial roles in mixing the ocean's layers, bringing nutrient-rich deep water closer to the sunlit surface zones. Submarine creatures appear to track and ride these internal waves, using them to conserve energy while traveling or to find concentrated food sources. The largest internal waves discovered so far form in the Luzon Strait between Taiwan and the Philippines, where they can reach amplitudes exceeding 550 feet. Let's explore a different kind of ocean mystery, the strange case of brinicles or ice fingers of death that form under sea ice in polar regions. When sea ice forms, it expels salt, creating supersaline brine that is denser than the surrounding seawater. This brine trickles down through cracks in the ice and into the seawater below, where its extreme cold freezes the less salty water around it. The result is a hollow tube of ice that extends downward like an icicle, growing as the brine continues to flow through its center. When these brinicles reach the seafloor, they spread outward, freezing everything they touch, including slow-moving creatures like starfish and sea urchins. Time-lapse photography has captured this lethal process, revealing how these ice formations literally chase and trap marine life in a growing web of frost. It's one of the ocean's most haunting phenomena, a frozen finger that brings flash-freezing death to anything unfortunate enough to be in its path. Deep beneath the Arctic ice cap lies another mysterious phenomenon, submarine pingos, massive mounds that rise from the seafloor like underwater volcanoes. These structures, which can be hundreds of feet tall and over half a mile wide, form when underground gases, or groundwater, push up through sediments beneath permafrost. As Earth's climate warms, some of these pingos appear to be destabilizing, releasing methane that had been trapped for thousands of years. Scientists worry that widespread collapse of these structures could release enormous quantities of this potent greenhouse gas, accelerating climate change. Some pingos have exploded violently on land, creating massive craters in Siberia that made international headlines. Their underwater counterparts could potentially trigger tsunamis if they were to collapse suddenly in shallow coastal areas. These slowly growing mounds represent yet another way the ocean stores and sometimes releases energy on timescales far longer than human observation. Now let's explore a particularly perplexing ocean mystery, the Lost Labrador, a vast expanse of ocean that appears to have been missed by climate warming. While ocean temperatures have risen globally, this region of the North Atlantic has actually cooled over recent decades, creating a puzzling cold spot on global temperature maps. Scientists believe this anomaly may be connected to a slowdown in the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, part of the global ocean conveyor belt. As glaciers melt in Greenland, the influx of fresh water appears to be weakening the current that normally brings warm water from the tropics to this region. This localized cooling amid global warming demonstrates the complex, sometimes counterintuitive ways that climate change manifests in our oceans. The consequences extend beyond temperature, affecting marine ecosystems, fisheries, and potentially even weather patterns across the North Atlantic. This cold spot may be an early warning sign of larger changes to ocean circulation patterns that have remained stable throughout human civilization. Let's drift toward another deep ocean enigma, the underwater crop circles discovered off the coast of Japan in 2006. These perfectly formed geometric patterns on the seafloor, spanning 6 feet in diameter with intricate ridges and valleys, initially mystified scientists. The mystery was eventually solved when tiny male pufferfish were observed, spending days creating these patterns using only their fins. They meticulously move sand grains to form these circular nests, decorating the ridges with shell fragments and other material to attract females. The centers of these circles contain fine sand where females can deposit their eggs, protected by the surrounding ridges. What's remarkable is the disparity in size. These 5-inch fish create structures over 15 times their body length, working continuously for 7-9 days. It's equivalent to a human building a precisely detailed structure, the size of a football field, using only materials they could move with their breath. The ocean holds many examples of such surprising intelligence, including the remarkable tool use observed in certain octopus species. Octopuses in Indonesia have been documented collecting coconut shell halves, carrying them for later use as portable shelters. This behavior represents true tool use. The shells are transported at significant energy cost, with no immediate benefit for future deployment. Veined octopuses have been observed using sticks and other debris to probe inaccessible areas for potential prey. The common octopus frequently builds fortified dens using rocks and shells, sometimes incorporating human debris like bottles or cans. Perhaps most remarkably, octopuses in captivity have demonstrated the ability to open screw-top jars, solve complex puzzles, and even escape through tiny openings. These behaviors are all the more impressive, coming from animals whose closest relatives are creatures like clams and snails. The ocean's most intelligent inhabitants may be the cetaceans, whales, and dolphins, whose brains have evolved different specializations than our own. Sperm whales live in complex societies with distinct vocal cultures that some researchers compare to language, though we cannot yet decipher their meaning. Orcas demonstrate knowledge transmission across generations, with pods developing unique hunting techniques that are taught rather than instinctive. Dolphins recognize themselves in mirrors, a rare form of self-awareness shared with only a few species like great apes, elephants, and magpies. Humpback whales compose songs that evolve over time and spread across oceans, with all males in a region adopting new elements that arise. These songs can last for hours and can be heard hundreds of miles away, containing patterns that suggest complex structure beyond simple repetition. We share our planet with these alternate intelligences, but can only glimpse the edges of their experience and consciousness. Let's explore another ocean mystery, the strange case of cubic sea salt, which forms perfect microscopic cubes unlike any other natural mineral. Salt crystals that form in the ocean maintain this perfect cubic structure, regardless of size, from microscopic particles to the massive salt formations of dried seabeds. The chemical bonds in sodium chloride naturally create this geometric form, one of nature's most perfect expressions of crystal geometry. These tiny cubes provide the nuclei around which water droplets form in the atmosphere, making sea salt a crucial component in cloud formation over oceans. When salt water splashes into the air and evaporates, it leaves behind airborne salt crystals that seed clouds and ultimately influence global weather patterns. The perfect cubic structure of sea salt has inspired human architecture and design for millennia, its geometric purity echoing in our buildings and art. As you drift towards sleep, imagine countless microscopic perfect cubes floating in the air above the ocean, each one a tiny crystal masterpiece linking sea and sky. Now let's dive into one of the ocean's most bizarre communities, marine life that makes its home in sunken human refuse, particularly shipwrecks. The estimated 3 million shipwrecks scattered across the world's oceans have become accidental artificial reefs, supporting unique ecosystems. On the World War II wrecks of Turk Lagoon, certain species of fish have existed in isolated populations for over 75 years, potentially evolving distinct characteristics. Organisms colonize these wrecks in predictable succession, first bacteria, then algae and invertebrates, followed by smaller fish, and finally larger predators. Some wrecks have developed such rich ecosystems that they contain higher biodiversity than the surrounding natural seabed. Certain marine species appear to prefer these human-made structures, using the vertical relief and enclosed spaces in ways natural reefs cannot provide. There's a certain poetic justice in these monuments, to human tragedy becoming cradles of new life, vessels of death, transformed into vessels of life. The ocean holds many such contradictions, including the phenomenon of ocean fertilization by dust from some of Earth's driest deserts. Wind-blown dust from the Sahara regularly crosses the Atlantic, carrying essential nutrients like iron that stimulate plankton growth in nutrient-poor waters. This dustfall can trigger massive algal blooms visible from space, temporarily transforming barren ocean regions into productive marine habitats. The complex chemistry of this dust-ocean interaction influences everything from hurricane formation to fisheries productivity. Similar processes occur with Asian dust, reaching the Pacific, and Australian dust fertilizing the Southern Ocean. Without this continental dust, large portions of our oceans would be marine deserts, unable to support the diverse ecosystems they currently host. It's a remarkable planetary connection, the world's driest lands directly feeding life in its wettest environments through atmospheric bridges. Let's explore an ocean mystery of a different sort, the strange and wonderful phenomenon of sea foam that occasionally blankets coastlines. This foam forms when dissolved organic matter, primarily from decaying algae, is agitated by breaking waves and wind. The resulting substance can accumulate in layers several feet thick, turning beaches into surreal landscapes of quivering white bubbles. In certain conditions, strong winds can lift this foam and carry it inland, creating the appearance of bizarre indoor snowstorms in coastal towns. While most sea foam is harmless, some blooms contain toxins from red tides that can cause respiratory irritation or other health issues. The foam's ability to trap and concentrate pollutants has made it a useful tool for scientists monitoring ocean contamination. Ancient mariners considered sea foam magical. The goddess Aphrodite was said to have been born from sea foam, her name literally meaning foam born. Deep below the ocean surface, there's another kind of foam, collections of bubbles that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of ocean physics. At depths below about 800 feet, the immense pressure should compress any gas bubbles, making persistent foam impossible. Yet researchers using deep-sea submersibles have observed mysterious foam-like substances at depths where they theoretically cannot exist. Some scientists speculate these might be created by previously unknown chemical processes or unusual biological secretions. Others suggest they might result from methane hydrates, frozen methane that can remain stable under high pressure but occasionally releases bubbles. Whatever their origin, these impossible foams represent another example of how the deep ocean continues to challenge our understanding of basic physics and chemistry. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine these ephemeral bubbles suspended in the crushing darkness, delicate structures defying the immense forces that should destroy them. Now let's explore one of the most otherworldly ecosystems on our planet, cold methane seeps, where this potent greenhouse gas leaks from the seafloor. Unlike the superheated hydrothermal vents, cold seeps release methane and hydrogen sulfide at ambient temperature, often just a few degrees above freezing. Around these chemical fountains grow forests of tube worms up to 10 feet tall with bright red plumes that extend from white tubes anchored in the sediment. These worms have no mouths or digestive systems. Instead, they host internal bacteria that convert methane or hydrogen sulfide into energy. Some individual tube worms at cold seeps are estimated to be over 250 years old, making them some of the longest-lived non-colonial animals on Earth. The chemicals that would be toxic to most life forms become the foundation of a thriving ecosystem through the miracle of symbiosis. These cold seeps demonstrate life's remarkable adaptability, finding ways to harness energy sources we would consider poisonous. The ocean also holds geological mysteries, including the puzzling phenomenon of deep-sea pockmarks, circular depressions in the seafloor. These features, which can be hundreds of feet in diameter and tens of feet deep, appear in fields containing thousands of individual craters. They're believed to form when fluids or gases erupt through the sediment, but the exact mechanisms and triggers remain poorly understood. Some pockmarks appear to be actively venting methane or other gases, while others seem dormant, possibly representing ancient eruption sites. Certain marine creatures preferentially inhabit these depressions, creating unique microecosystems within the larger seafloor environment. The distribution of pockmarks globally may provide clues about the location of deep petroleum and gas deposits, or areas of tectonic activity. These submarine craters represent another way the ocean floor breathes, releasing pressure and materials from deep within the Earth in discrete, focused locations. Speaking of the ocean floor breathing, let's explore the strange world of submarine groundwater discharge, where freshwater springs flow directly into the ocean. These underwater springs occur where continental aquifers extend beneath the seafloor and find pathways to release their fresh water into the marine environment. Some are powerful enough to create visible disturbances on the ocean surface, with sailors in ancient times using them as sources of drinking water in the middle of the sea. The mixing zone, where fresh and salt water meet, creates unique chemical environments that support specialized communities of microorganisms. Indigenous peoples in many coastal regions developed intimate knowledge of these offshore freshwater sources, sometimes diving with hollow reeds to access drinking water. Modern research suggests these submarine discharges may account for a significant portion of the nutrients and pollutants entering coastal waters worldwide. These hidden connections between land and sea represent another way that Earth's water cycle is more complex than it appears in elementary textbooks. Among the ocean's most puzzling features are massive submarine landslides that dwarf anything possible on land. The Sturgis slide off the coast of Norway involved the movement of over 850 cubic miles of sediment, enough to bury the entire UK in a layer 20 feet deep. This enormous event, which occurred around 6,200 BCE, created a tsunami that flooded coastlines across the North Atlantic, potentially drowning early human settlements. What triggers these massive underwater avalanches remains incompletely understood, though earthquakes, gas hydrate destabilization, and sea level changes are all suspects. The scars from ancient submarine landslides can be found on continental margins worldwide, suggesting they're a regular feature of geological processes. Some scientists worry that climate change could increase their frequency by destabilizing methane hydrates or altering the stability of seafloor sediments. These hidden catastrophes reshape the ocean floor on scales difficult for humans to comprehend, moving more Earth in a single event than humans have throughout our entire history. Let's explore a different kind of ocean mystery, the strange case of the North Atlantic garbage patch, which seems to periodically vanish. Unlike its more famous Pacific counterpart, the Atlantic's collection of floating debris appears to dissipate and reform in cycles that researchers don't fully understand. Some theorize that changes in the North Atlantic gyre circulation patterns may occasionally flush the accumulated plastic into deeper waters or onto coastlines. Others suggest that biological activity, particularly the colonization of plastic by microorganisms, might change the buoyancy of debris over time. Whatever the mechanism, this disappearing act complicates efforts to monitor and clean up this marine pollution. It also raises questions about where the plastic goes when it's not visible at the surface, whether it's sinking to the seafloor, breaking down into microplastics, or being consumed by marine life. The ocean's ability to hide even our most visible impacts highlights how much remains unknown about its basic physical and biological processes. Deep beneath the waves lurks a different kind of mystery, the strange phenomenon of underwater rain. When certain conditions align in the deep ocean, marine snow, the constant shower of organic debris, can fall so heavily it resembles a snowstorm. These underwater blizzards occur when surface productivity spikes, sending unusual amounts of dead plankton and other organic matter toward the seafloor. Deep-sea cameras have captured these events, showing what looks like an upside-down snowstorm in the beam of submersible lights. These rare but intense pulses of food energy can trigger feeding frenzies among deep-sea creatures, accustomed to much leaner conditions. Some scientists believe these events may be crucial for the reproduction of certain deep-sea species, which time their breeding cycles to coincide with these occasional feasts. Like so many ocean phenomena, these underwater storms operate on schedules and triggers we've only begun to understand. Let's drift toward another ocean enigma, the mystery of deep-sea gigantism, where creatures living in the abyss grow to extraordinary sizes. The giant isopod, a relative of the common woodlouse, can grow to over a foot long in the deep sea, hundreds of times larger than its terrestrial cousins. Japanese spider crabs can reach leg spans of 12 feet, making them the largest arthropods on Earth. The colossal squid develops eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes of any known animal, living or extinct. Several theories attempt to explain this phenomenon, including the oxygen availability hypothesis, which suggests cold, high-pressure water holds more dissolved oxygen. Others point to reduced predation pressure, relaxed constraints on growth rates due to slow metabolism, or advantages in conserving energy at abyssal depths. Whatever the cause, these oversized creatures create an almost fairy tale quality to the deep ocean, a realm where familiar animals appear in fantastical, exaggerated forms. Equally mysterious is the opposite phenomenon, the remarkable miniaturization of certain deep-sea fish species. Male anglerfish of the genus Serenity can be 60 times smaller than their female counterparts, making them among the most extreme examples of sexual dimorphism in vertebrates. Some deep-sea fish have evolved to adult sizes smaller than half an inch, retaining juvenile characteristics throughout their lives. These tiny fish often have simplified body structures, reduced bone calcification, and other adaptations that minimize energy requirements. In the food-scarce deep ocean, being extremely small can be advantageous, requiring less energy to maintain basic bodily functions. The contrast between giants and dwarfs living in the same environment highlights how the deep sea drives evolution in multiple, sometimes contradictory directions. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine these extremes of size coexisting in the same dark waters, enormous crustaceans sharing space with fish, smaller than your fingernail. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most subtle mysteries, the question of how fish sleep without closing their eyes. Most fish lack eyelids yet still require periods of rest to maintain normal biological function. Some species enter a trance-like state while remaining alert to potential threats, reducing their movement and metabolism without becoming completely unconscious. Certain fish wedge themselves into crevices or bury themselves in sand during rest periods, providing some protection during their vulnerable state. Parrotfish secrete a mucus cocoon around themselves at night, potentially masking their scent from predators while they rest. Some schooling fish appear to take turns remaining vigilant, while others enter restful states, a kind of collective sleep security system. The boundary between sleep and wakefulness becomes blurred in these ancient vertebrates, challenging our mammal-centric understanding of consciousness. The ocean doesn't just contain physical and biological mysteries, it also influences human psychology in ways we're only beginning to understand. The blue mind phenomenon describes the measurable calming effect that proximity to water has on the human nervous system. Brain scans show distinct patterns of neural activity when people look at or listen to ocean waves, with increased alpha waves associated with relaxation and contentment. The negative ions present in ocean air have been linked to increased serotonin levels, potentially explaining the mood elevation many experience at the beach. The vast horizon of the ocean may satisfy deep evolutionary preferences for landscapes, offering both prospect, clear views, and refuge, accessible escape routes. The rhythmic pattern of waves provides a form of natural entrainment for our brainwaves, potentially explaining why ocean sounds are so effective for inducing sleep. Perhaps our affinity for the ocean reflects our evolutionary origins, a cellular memory of the primordial seas where life began billions of years ago. As you continue drifting towards sleep, let's explore one final ocean mystery, the strange phenomenon of sea sparkle, or bioluminescent waves. Certain plankton species produce light when disturbed, creating ethereal blue glows that trace the movement of water, fish, or human swimmers. These dinoflagellates can bloom in such numbers that entire bays and coastlines glow with their cold blue fire when conditions are right. Each microscopic organism produces just a tiny flash, but collectively they create one of nature's most magical displays. The chemical reaction involves a compound called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase, literally light bearer, the same basic chemistry that fireflies use on land. Ancient mariners reported sailing through milky seas that glowed for miles in every direction, the ship's wake blazing with blue-white luminescence. Modern satellite technology has confirmed these accounts, detecting massive bioluminescent blooms that can cover thousands of square miles of ocean surface. The ocean's bioluminescent displays represent just one of countless phenomena that remind us how strange and wonderful our world can be. From crushing depths where life thrives under pressures that would flatten a submarine, to the mysterious creatures that populate the midnight zone. From underwater lakes with their own shorelines and waves, to ancient sharks that may have been swimming since before Columbus set sail. From massive underwater waterfalls that dwarf anything on land, to the invisible boundaries between water masses that create worlds within worlds. The ocean reminds us that there are still frontiers of discovery on our own planet, places where the unknown awaits just beyond our current understanding. As sleep finally embraces you, carry these ocean mysteries into your dreams, a reminder that wonder still exists in our world. And perhaps, as you explore these watery realms in your mind, you'll discover new mysteries of your own, joining the ancient human tradition of finding meaning in the endless blue depths. As we continue our journey through the ocean's mysteries, let's explore the strange phenomenon of immortal jellyfish that can reverse their life cycle. The Turritopsis dohrnii jellyfish has developed the remarkable ability to revert from its adult medusa form back to its juvenile polyp stage when faced with environmental stress or physical damage. This biological reset allows it to begin its life cycle anew, potentially repeating this process indefinitely, and earning it the name immortal jellyfish. While predation and disease still claim these creatures in the wild, from a purely cellular perspective, they appear capable of escaping death by old age. This extraordinary ability has made them the subject of intense scientific study, with potential implications for understanding cellular aging in humans. Their cells undergo transdifferentiation, changing from one specialized type to another without going through an intermediate stem cell stage. These tiny, translucent creatures floating in our oceans may hold secrets to biological immortality that could revolutionize medicine if we can unlock their genetic mechanisms. Among the ocean's most peculiar inhabitants are the sea pigs, bizarre deep-sea sea cucumbers that roam the abyssal plains on leg-like appendages. These pudgy pink creatures move in herds across the seafloor, feeding on organic matter that has settled from the waters above. Despite their alien appearance, they're among the most common animals on Earth by area covered, dominating vast stretches of the deep ocean floor. Their bodies contain unique chemical compounds that make them unpalatable to most predators, allowing them to live relatively unmolested. They can detect food from remarkable distances, with entire herds changing direction to move toward a new food source like a whale carcass. These strange animals play a crucial role in deep ocean ecosystems by recycling organic matter and preventing the accumulation of detritus. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these pink, pig-like creatures slowly marching across the abyssal plains in the eternal darkness, following ancient patterns we're only beginning to understand. Let's explore another deep-sea marvel, the Yeti crab, which farms bacteria on its own hairy claws. These remarkable crustaceans, discovered only in 2005, grow dense gardens of filamentous bacteria on specialized seiche covering their claws and arms. They wave these hairy appendages over hydrothermal vents to provide their bacterial gardens with optimal growing conditions, essentially farming their own food. When the bacteria have multiplied sufficiently, the crabs scrape them off with specialized mouthparts, harvesting what they've grown. This sophisticated symbiotic relationship allows Yeti crabs to thrive in the harsh conditions around hydrothermal vents, where conventional food sources are limited. Some species form dense aggregations of up to 600 individuals per square meter, all waving their arms in the toxic plumes to tend their bacterial gardens. It's a remarkable example of how evolution can produce solutions that mirror human agricultural practices, developed independently in the most alien environment on our planet. Deep beneath Antarctic ice shelves, scientists have discovered another ocean mystery, bizarre stalactites of ice known as brinicles that grow downward from sea ice. These ice fingers of death form when supersaline brine, expelled from freezing sea ice, sinks through seawater, freezing everything it touches. Time-lapse photography has captured these hollow ice tubes extending toward the seafloor, encasing slow-moving creatures like starfish and sea urchins in a growing web of ice. The brine within these formations is so cold that it freezes the surrounding seawater on contact, creating a constantly extending tube of ice. When these barnacles reach the seafloor, they spread outward like a frozen pool, trapping anything unable to escape their advance. It's one of nature's most haunting phenomena, a crystalline finger that brings flash-freezing death to marine creatures in an otherwise stable environment. These structures represent yet another way that the polar oceans create conditions unlike anywhere else on Earth, driving unique adaptations among the creatures that live there. Let's drift toward one of the ocean's most puzzling acoustic phenomena, the mysterious sound known as the upsweep. First detected by underwater microphones in 1991, this persistent, low-frequency sound rises in pitch over about 10 seconds and has been recorded throughout the Pacific. Unlike the bloop, which was eventually attributed to icequakes, the upsweep remains unexplained despite decades of scientific investigation. It appears to be seasonal, growing stronger in spring and fall, which has led some researchers to suggest a connection to volcanic activity. Others propose biological origins, though no known marine creature produces sounds with exactly these characteristics. The sound has been gradually diminishing since its first detection, but remains audible at monitoring stations across the Pacific Ocean. It serves as a reminder that the ocean contains acoustic mysteries we've been unable to solve despite advanced technology and decades of research. Another acoustic puzzle involves the strange case of singing icebergs, which produce sounds resembling electronic music or science fiction effects. As icebergs melt and crack, they release trapped air bubbles and experience internal stress that generates complex harmonic frequencies. These sounds can travel enormous distances through the ocean's natural sound channels, creating ethereal songs detectable thousands of miles from their source. Researchers have recorded these sounds and raised their pitch to make them more audible to human ears, revealing surprisingly musical qualities. Some icebergs produce consistent tones for hours, or even days, as steady meltwater flows through consistent channels in the ice. Others create percussive patterns as pieces calve away or internal air pockets collapse, generating rhythmic sequences that almost seem intentional. These frozen giants, some containing ice hundreds of thousands of years old, create natural sound art as they gradually return to the ocean from which they formed. Among the ocean's more bizarre inhabitants are glass sponges that construct intricate skeletons of silica, essentially biological glass. Some species, like the Venus's flower basket, create structures of such geometric precision they've inspired materials scientists and engineers. These sponges construct their skeletal lattices with an efficiency and strength that surpasses many human-designed structures. What's particularly remarkable is that they accomplish this feat without a brain or nervous system, using chemical signals between cells to coordinate their construction efforts. Some deep-sea glass sponges are estimated to be over 15,000 years old, potentially making them among the longest-lived animal species on Earth. They grow extremely slowly in the cold, nutrient-poor deep ocean, sometimes just a few millimeters per century. These ancient, fragile structures represent living architecture that has survived since the last ice age, silently filtering seawater through their intricate glass lattices. Deep on the abyssal plains live creatures, so bizarre they seem alien, like the barrel-eye fish with its transparent head filled with fluid. These remarkable fish have tubular, extremely light-sensitive eyes that can rotate within their transparent cockpit, allowing them to look upward for prey silhouetted against the faint light from above. The transparent shield is believed to protect their specialized eyes while providing an expanded field of vision to detect bioluminescent prey. They live at depths between 2,000 and 2,600 feet, where the only light comes from bioluminescent organisms and the faintest remnants of sunlight. Their eyes contain specialized yellow filters that help them spot the bioluminescent glow of jellyfish against the weak blue light filtering down from above. The barrel's unusual anatomy wasn't fully understood until 2004, as previous specimens had their delicate, transparent heads damaged during collection. It's a perfect example of how deep-sea creatures often have features so alien to our experience that we struggle to understand their function even when we can observe them. Equally bizarre is the gulper eel, with its enormous mouth that can expand to swallow prey larger than itself. When closed, the mouth appears relatively normal, but when open, it reveals a cavernous black interior that seems impossibly large for the eel's body. The jaw is hinged in a way that allows it to open far wider than would be possible with mammalian anatomy. Special joints at the back of the skull and loosely connected bones allow the entire head to expand when the mouth opens. This adaptation lets the gulper eel take advantage of rare feeding opportunities in the food-scarce deep ocean. When a suitable prey item is encountered, perhaps only once in weeks or months, the eel can consume it regardless of size. This feast-or-famine approach to feeding is common among deep-sea predators, where meals are unpredictable and often widely spaced in time. One of the ocean's most remarkable feats of natural engineering can be found in the spiral shells of chambered nautiluses. These marine mollusks create logarithmic spiral shells that grow by adding larger chambers while maintaining the same perfect geometric proportion. The resulting form embodies the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship found throughout nature and considered aesthetically perfect by many cultures. Inside these chambers, the Nautilus can adjust its buoyancy by adding or removing fluid, allowing it to hover effortlessly at any depth it chooses. This ancient design has proven so successful that Nautilus has survived relatively unchanged for over 500 million years, outlasting the dinosaurs and countless other species. The creature that builds these perfect shells has a primitive brain but sophisticated behavior, including daily vertical migrations from deep water to shallower feeding grounds. Their eyes use a pinhole camera design rather than a lens, yet function remarkably well in the low-light conditions of their deep water habitat. The ocean doesn't just hold biological wonders, it also contains geological mysteries, like the bizarre underwater landscape known as wave rock. Located off the coast of Western Australia, this strange formation resembles a massive frozen wave about to break, sculpted from solid stone rather than water. Formed through a process called differential erosion, where softer rock erodes faster than harder material, leaving behind wave-like formations. Similar structures exist in other oceanic locations, creating underwater landscapes that seem to defy the boundary between solid and liquid. These formations often become hotspots of marine biodiversity, their complex surfaces providing habitat for countless species. Some cultures have developed myths around these frozen waves, seeing them as evidence of ancient gods turning tsunamis to stone to save coastal communities. They serve as reminders that the line between solid and fluid is more complex than it appears, with rock flowing like liquid over geological timescales. Let's explore another ocean mystery: the strange case of floating stones or pumice rafts that can carry entire ecosystems across thousands of miles of open ocean. When underwater volcanoes erupt, they often produce highly porous pumice stone that floats on the ocean's surface in massive interconnected rafts. These rafts can span thousands of square miles and float for years, gradually dispersing as they travel with ocean currents. Marine organisms quickly colonize these temporary islands, using them as vehicles for dispersal across ocean basins. A single pumice raft can host hundreds of species of algae, invertebrates, and even small fish that shelter in the spaces between stones. These natural rafts may play crucial roles in helping marine species colonize new territories and recover from local extinctions. They represent nature's own vessels, lifeboats, that connect distant marine ecosystems through a process scientists call ecological rafting. Among the ocean's most perfect geological mysteries are the underwater spherical boulders found in several locations around the world. Off the coast of New Zealand, perfectly round boulders, up to 9 feet in diameter, rest on the seafloor, their origins still debated by geologists. Similar formations in the Gulf of Finland and off Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula challenge simple explanations for their uniform spherical shape. Some scientists propose they formed around a central nucleus, with minerals accreting in layers over millions of years, like giant pearls. Others suggest they resulted from unique concretion processes, where minerals precipitate within sediment around a central point. What makes these formations remarkable is their geometric perfection. They are more perfectly spherical than anything humans could easily manufacture. Nature, working patiently over geological timescales, has created mathematical perfection that our most advanced technology would struggle to match. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most unusual residents, pyrosomes, colonial creatures that form giant translucent tubes that glow with bioluminescent light. These fire bodies, from the Greek pyrophore, fire, and soma for body, can reach lengths of up to 60 feet, though each individual zooid making up the colony is only a few millimeters long. They propel themselves by coordinated jet propulsion, with thousands of individual animals drawing in water and expelling it to move the entire colony. When stimulated, pyrosomes produce waves of blue-green bioluminescence that pulse along their length, creating one of the ocean's most spectacular light shows. Sailors have reported swimming among pyrosomes that illuminated the surrounding water bright enough to read by when touched. Despite their massive size, these colonial organisms are incredibly fragile, with body walls often just a single millimeter thick. They represent one of the ocean's most successful experiments in colonial living, thousands of individuals functioning as a single organism. The deep ocean also holds time capsules of Earth's ancient atmosphere in the form of air bubbles trapped in seafloor sediments. These tiny pockets of prehistoric air have remained sealed for thousands or even millions of years, preserving the exact composition of Earth's atmosphere from those times. Scientists can extract and analyze these bubbles to directly measure carbon dioxide, methane, and other gases as they existed before human influence. These natural archives provide crucial baseline data for understanding climate change and other atmospheric processes over geological time. Some of the oldest bubbles recovered date back over 800,000 years, spanning 8 complete glacial interglacial cycles. The preservation of these delicate time capsules requires specific conditions: rapid burial, minimal bioturbation, and stable pressure over geological timescales. As you drift further towards sleep, imagine these tiny bubbles of ancient air trapped in darkness for millennia, silent witnesses to Earth's past climates. Let's explore another ocean mystery: the curious case of sea butterflies, tiny marine snails that have evolved to fly through water using wing-like appendages. These pteropods, as scientists call them, beat their modified foot lobes in a figure-8 pattern, similar to how insects flap their wings. High-speed photography has revealed they achieve this motion through a remarkable muscular and elastic mechanism that stores and releases energy with each stroke. Some species construct delicate shells of aragonite, a form of calcium carbonate that is particularly vulnerable to ocean acidification. As our oceans absorb more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the resulting chemical changes are causing these shells to literally dissolve. Sea butterflies occupy a crucial position in marine food webs, feeding on plankton and providing food for everything from larger plankton to whales. Their potential decline serves as a warning about the cascading effects of changing ocean chemistry on ecosystems we're only beginning to understand. Now let's drift toward one of the ocean's most elegant mysteries: the perfect spiral swimming pattern of certain marine microorganisms. These tiny creatures, including some bacteria and algae, trace perfect logarithmic spirals as they swim, the same mathematical pattern found in nautilus shells and galaxy formations. Scientists have determined that this spiral swimming results from a simple physical constraint: the asymmetrical shape of these microorganisms causes them to rotate as they move forward. What's remarkable is how this simple mechanical principle creates mathematical perfection on a microscopic scale, invisible to the naked eye. These spirals optimize the organism's ability to sample their environment for nutrients or detect chemical gradients that might lead them to food. The same pattern appears across vastly different scales in the ocean, from the swimming paths of microscopic algae to the hunting patterns of certain sharks. Nature repeatedly converges on this mathematical form because it represents an optimal solution to certain problems of movement and growth. The ocean contains other mathematical wonders, including creatures that embody the Fibonacci sequence, a series of numbers where each is the sum of the two preceding ones. Certain shell-forming marine organisms grow their protective coverings according to this sequence, creating the same spiral pattern found in everything from hurricanes to galaxies. The arms of starfish and the florets of submarine plant life often occur in Fibonacci numbers, typically 5, 8, 13, or 21, rather than other possibilities. This mathematical pattern appears across such diverse marine life that it suggests fundamental principles at work, rather than coincidence. The Fibonacci sequence creates what's known as the golden angle, approximately 137.5 degrees, which maximizes exposure to sunlight or water currents when arranging structures in a spiral. These living demonstrations of mathematics remind us that the order we perceive in the universe isn't arbitrary but reflects underlying physical and mathematical principles. As you continue to drift towards sleep, imagine these perfect mathematical patterns repeating across scales from microscopic to massive throughout the ocean depths. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most ethereal inhabitants: salps, transparent barrel-shaped creatures that can form chains dozens of feet long. These remarkable animals propel themselves by contracting their hollow, translucent bodies to pump water through internal filters that capture their planktonic food. It can reproduce at one of the fastest rates of any multicellular animal, with populations doubling in as little as 24 hours under ideal conditions. This explosive reproduction allows them to form massive blooms that can extend for hundreds of miles and be visible from space. Despite their delicate appearance, salps play a crucial role in the ocean's biological carbon pump, packaging carbon in their dense fecal pellets that sink rapidly to the seafloor. Some scientists believe they may be even more significant than previously thought in sequestering carbon from the atmosphere into the deep ocean. These living glass barrels, pulsing through the water in perfect coordination, represent one of the ocean's most elegant solutions to the challenges of marine life. Let's now explore the strange phenomenon of synchronous spawning, where entire coral reefs reproduce simultaneously on just a few nights each year. Triggered by lunar cycles, water temperature, and day length, corals release their eggs and sperm in a coordinated spectacle that turns the ocean into a living snowstorm. This reproductive strategy increases the chances of successful fertilization for organisms that cannot move to find mates. On the Great Barrier Reef, this mass spawning event typically occurs after the full moon in late spring, with different coral species releasing their gametes in a precise sequence. Scientists can predict these events to the day, but still don't fully understand all the environmental cues that trigger such perfect timing across thousands of individual organisms. Some reefs synchronize their spawning across hundreds of miles, suggesting communication mechanisms or environmental triggers operating on oceanic scales. The sight of an entire reef releasing billions of pink and white bundles that float upward in underwater clouds is one of nature's most spectacular reproductive displays. The ocean conceals other remarkable synchronized behaviors, including the mysterious vertical migration that occurs each night in every ocean basin worldwide. As the sun sets, trillions of marine organisms rise from the depths toward the surface in what constitutes the largest animal migration on Earth. This daily movement involves creatures from tiny zooplankton to foot-long lanternfish, all ascending to feed in the food-rich surface waters under cover of darkness. Before dawn, this entire assemblage reverses direction, descending hundreds or thousands of feet to spend the daylight hours in the relative safety of deeper, darker waters. The biomass involved in this vertical migration is estimated to be greater than the total weight of all land animals combined. Scientists have recently discovered that this movement is substantial enough to create currents that help mix ocean layers and potentially influence global climate patterns. These nightly migrations even show up on sonar as a distinct layer that rises and falls so predictably that during World War II, naval operators initially mistook it for a false seafloor. Among the ocean's most unusual synchronized behaviors is the strange case of snapping shrimp, whose collective clicking can dominate the underwater soundscape. These small crustaceans possess one oversized claw that they can snap shut with such speed that it creates a cavitation bubble that collapses with a loud pop and a flash of light. The sound from a single shrimp reaches 218 decibels, louder than a gunshot, though it dissipates quickly underwater due to its extremely short duration. Colonies of thousands or millions of these shrimp snapping their claws create a continuous crackling noise that early submarine crews mistook for the sound of their hulls breaking apart. This background crackling is so consistent in tropical and subtropical waters that military submarines can hide beneath it, using the noise to mask their own acoustic signatures. Some fish species have evolved to use the sound as cover for their own activities, timing their noisy behaviors to coincide with peaks in the snapping chorus. It's one of the ocean's most surprising collective behaviors, tiny animals creating a continuous soundscape that shapes the behavior of both natural and human inhabitants of the sea. Let's explore another of the ocean's acoustic mysteries, the haunting songs of humpback whales that follow complex grammatical rules similar to human language. Male humpbacks produce sequences of moans, cries, and pure tones that can last up to 30 minutes and be heard across entire ocean basins. All males in a population sing roughly the same song, but the composition evolves gradually over time, with new elements appearing and spreading through the group. Scientists have identified repeated patterns that suggest these songs have syntax, specific units that combine into phrases, which form themes, which constitute a complete song. What makes these songs particularly mysterious is that they appear to serve multiple purposes simultaneously, attracting mates, establishing dominance, and potentially communicating complex information. Some researchers believe these songs may contain far more sophisticated communication than we currently recognize, possibly including information about feeding grounds or ocean conditions. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine these ancient melodies traveling through dark waters, carrying messages we can hear but cannot yet comprehend. The ocean contains other mysterious sounds, including the puzzling phenomenon known as bioduck, a rhythmic underwater noise heard in the Southern Ocean since the 1960s. For decades, scientists were baffled by this regular pulsing sound, which resembles a duck's quack but occurs in remote Antarctic waters, where ducks do not exist. Various theories attributed it to submarines, underwater equipment, or unknown marine creatures, until 2013 when researchers finally identified the Antarctic minke whale as the source. Even with the mystery of its origin solved, scientists still don't understand why these whales produce such unusual vocalizations or what information they might convey. The 5-decade quest to identify the sound highlights how even in our technological age, the ocean keeps many of its acoustic secrets. Our understanding of marine bioacoustics remains in its infancy, with new sounds regularly recorded that cannot be attributed to known sources. The ocean is never silent. It speaks in a language of clicks, moans, whistles, and rumbles that we are only beginning to translate. Let's dive deeper now into one of the ocean's most persistent mysteries, the strange magnetic anomalies that disrupt compasses and navigation equipment in certain regions. The Bermuda Triangle is perhaps the most famous example, but similar magnetic irregularities have been documented in the Dragon's Triangle, near Japan, and other locations worldwide. These anomalies can cause compass needles to spin unpredictably or point away from true north, creating serious navigational challenges before the advent of GPS technology. Scientists attribute most of these effects to natural causes, including magnetic minerals in the seafloor, unique interactions between ocean currents and the Earth's magnetic field, or even large deposits of methane hydrates. However, the precise mechanisms creating these powerful localized effects remain incompletely understood, especially when they appear to fluctuate over time. Some marine creatures, including sea turtles and certain fish species, use the Earth's magnetic field for navigation and appear to compensate for these anomalies in ways we don't fully comprehend. These magnetic mysteries remind us that beyond the physical ocean we can see and touch exists an invisible ocean of magnetic and electrical fields that influences life in ways we're still discovering. The ocean contains other invisible forces, including vast underwater rivers called submarine currents that flow with more water than all land rivers combined. The Gulf Stream transports over 100 million cubic feet of water per second, 150 times the average flow of the Amazon, the world's largest river by volume. These oceanic rivers don't just move water, they transport heat, nutrients, marine life, and even sound across thousands of miles, connecting distant ecosystems. Some deep ocean currents move so slowly, just a few centimeters per second, that water entering the system today won't complete its global circuit for nearly 1,000 years. Unlike rivers on land that flow over soil and rock, ocean currents flow through water itself, creating boundaries that can be as distinct as shorelines yet remain invisible to the human eye. These boundaries between water masses create fronts where temperature, salinity, or density changes abruptly, forming underwater walls that many marine creatures treat as physical barriers. Some fish species spend their entire lives swimming along these invisible boundaries, never crossing between the water masses that meet but do not mix. Perhaps the most mysterious of all ocean currents are the strange rotating vortices known as mesoscale eddies, massive whirlpools that can span hundreds of miles. These autonomous spinning bodies of water break off from major currents and can travel independently across ocean basins, maintaining their distinct properties for months or even years. Some rotate clockwise, drawing surface water downward at their centers, while others spin counterclockwise, pulling deeper water upward in their cores. The largest of these oceanic whirlpools can contain more water than all the Great Lakes combined, spinning slowly through the ocean like independent liquid planets. Marine creatures appear to recognize these eddies as distinct habitats. Certain fish species congregate at their boundaries or centers, treating them as oases in the open ocean. Modern satellite technology has revealed that these features are far more common than previously believed, with thousands existing at any given time across the world's oceans. They represent one of the ocean's most powerful mixing mechanisms, transferring heat, salt, and nutrients across latitudes in ways that significantly influence global climate. Let's explore one of the ocean's most ethereal phenomena, the underwater light shows created by bioluminescent organisms that turn entire bays into lakes of living light. In certain locations around the world, conditions align perfectly to support massive concentrations of bioluminescent dinoflagellates, microscopic organisms that flash blue light when disturbed. Puerto Rico's Mosquito Bay, Thailand's Koh Rong, and Jamaica's Luminous Lagoon are among the most famous of these bioluminescent bays, though the phenomenon occurs worldwide. Each tiny organism produces just a microsecond flash, but when trillions are stimulated simultaneously by a wave, boat wake, or swimming motion, the effect is magical. The chemistry behind this cold light is remarkably efficient. Bioluminescence converts nearly 100% of its energy to light with almost no heat waste, making it far more efficient than any human-made light source. Indigenous peoples around the world incorporated these glowing waters into their mythology, often seeing them as manifestations of spirit worlds or the souls of ancestors. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine trailing your hand through water that transforms your every movement into swirls of cool blue fire, an intimate dance with living light. Even more mysterious are the rare phenomena known as milky seas, vast expanses of continuously glowing ocean that can cover thousands of square miles. Unlike the more common bioluminescent displays that flash when disturbed, milky seas produce a steady, uniform glow that persists for days or even weeks. Sailors have reported sailing through what appeared to be plains of snow or a field of floating ice that glowed with an eerie, pale blue-white light. These accounts were long dismissed as maritime tall tales until satellite imagery in 2005 finally confirmed a Milky Sea event off the coast of Somalia that covered over 5,800 square miles. Scientists believe these events result from massive colonies of luminous bacteria associated with algal blooms, though the precise mechanisms remain poorly understood. What triggers these bacterial colonies to produce continuous light rather than the brief flashes typical of most bioluminescence is still unknown. These glowing oceanic plains represent one of nature's rarest and most spectacular light shows, witnessed by relatively few humans throughout history. The ocean hosts other light phenomena, including the mesmerizing green flash, a rare optical effect that occurs at sunset or sunrise over water. For a brief moment, usually less than 2 seconds, a distinct green spot or ray appears at the upper edge of the sun's disk as it meets the horizon. The phenomenon results from atmospheric refraction, separating the sun's light into different colors, with conditions over water making the effect more commonly visible. Sailors once considered witnessing the green flash a sign of exceptional good luck, with some claiming it granted the ability to read others' thoughts for a brief period. Jules Verne popularized the phenomenon in his novel Les Rayons Verts, The Green Ray, where he wrote, "If there is a green ray, then you can read your own soul and the soul of those with you." The effect is entirely real, but so fleeting and dependent on perfect atmospheric conditions that many people spend their entire lives without seeing it. These momentary emerald flashes remind us that even the most ordinary aspects of ocean life, a sunset over water, can contain extraordinary moments of natural magic. Deep beneath the waves exists another kind of light. Show the eerie glow of radioactive materials on the ocean floor, remnants of both natural processes and human activities. Naturally occurring radioactive minerals on the seafloor create patches of elevated background radiation, particularly along the mid-ocean ridges where new crust forms. More concerning are the anthropogenic sources, nuclear waste dumped in the oceans between the 1946 and 1993, lost nuclear submarines, and debris from atomic tests. The Soviet Union alone dumped 17 nuclear reactors into the Kara Sea, creating underwater radiation hotspots that will remain dangerous for thousands of years. Marine organisms near these sites show evidence of genetic mutations and cellular abnormalities, though the full ecological impact remains poorly understood. Some deep-sea bacteria appear to have evolved radiation resistance, far exceeding anything found on land, suggesting adaptation to natural radiation sources over evolutionary time. These radioactive remnants represent one of humanity's most enduring impacts on the deep ocean, invisible dangers that will long outlast our civilization. Let's explore another ocean mystery, the curious case of floating islands that drift across the open seas, sometimes carrying terrestrial ecosystems for thousands of miles. These natural rafts form when portions of coastline, complete with soil and vegetation, break away during storms or tsunamis and are carried out to sea. Some remain intact for months or even years, supported by the tangled roots of trees that trap air pockets and provide buoyancy. Historical accounts describe encounters with floating islands substantial enough to be temporarily mistaken for actual land, complete with living trees and sometimes animals. Japanese fishermen have documented cases of terrestrial animals, including rats and snakes, arriving on their shores atop these drifting islands after storms on distant coasts. Biologists believe these floating ecosystems may have played significant roles in distributing plant and animal species to isolated islands throughout evolutionary history. In a sense, they represent nature's own version of Noah's Ark, temporary lifeboats that transport entire biological communities across otherwise impassable ocean barriers. Among the ocean's strangest inhabitants are creatures that seem to defy the basic rules of biology, like the bizarre sea cucumber that can essentially liquefy its body and then reconstitute itself. When threatened, certain sea cucumber species can expel their internal organs, reduce their body to a semi-liquid state, and flow into cracks and crevices to escape predators. Over a period of weeks, they regenerate all their lost organs and return to their normal solid form, essentially reincarnating themselves after a seeming death. Some species can even divide themselves in half when under stress, with each portion growing into a complete new individual, a process called fission. Their skin contains a unique protein called catch collagen that can switch between solid and liquid states in response to chemical signals from the nervous system. This remarkable adaptation allows them to squeeze through openings much smaller than their normal body size and reform on the other side, like a living version of the liquid metal T-1000 from science fiction. These humble ocean floor dwellers possess biological capabilities that would seem like superpowers if humans could replicate them, particularly in the fields of regenerative medicine and materials science. Let's now drift toward one of the ocean's most puzzling geographic features, the perfectly straight lines found on certain seafloor regions that extend for hundreds of miles. First discovered during seafloor mapping of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge in the 1990s, these ruler straight lines cut across natural formations in ways that initially suggested artificial origin. Geologists eventually determined they result from extremely rare geological processes, where tectonic stress creates perfectly linear fracture zones. What makes them particularly mysterious is their persistence. Despite millions of years of sedimentation, volcanic activity, and tectonic movement, some maintain their straight-line integrity. Certain marine creatures appear to use these linear features as highways, with higher concentrations of deep-sea life documented along their routes. The lines create unique microhabitats where water flows differently over the seafloor, generating currents that concentrate nutrients and organic matter. These natural formations remind us that geometry we typically associate with intelligence or design can arise from purely geological processes operating over vast timescales. The ocean floor holds other geometric puzzles, including the strange honeycomb patterns found in certain muddy seafloor regions. These perfectly hexagonal depressions, each several feet across, form vast pattern fields that resemble giant beehives embedded in the ocean bottom. Scientists initially struggled to explain their formation, as no known geological process seemed capable of creating such uniform repeated structures. The mystery was eventually solved when researchers discovered that methane gas seeping through the sediment creates equal pressure points that naturally organize into hexagonal patterns, the most efficient arrangement for releasing pressure. Similar patterns emerge in drying mudflats, cooling lava, and even in the cloud formations on certain gas giant planets, all examples of how physics naturally creates geometric order. The seafloor honeycombs represent another example of spontaneous organization in nature, where simple physical forces produce complex, seemingly designed patterns. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these perfect hexagons stretching across the dark ocean floor, each one a window into the Earth's interior, where ancient gases escape from their prehistoric prison. Let's explore one of the ocean's most persistent historical mysteries, the strange case of phantom islands that appeared on maps for centuries before being proven not to exist. Sandy Island in the Coral Sea appeared on maps from 1774 until as recently as 2012, when an Australian research vessel navigated to its supposed location and found only open ocean. The Isle of Demons near Newfoundland appeared on 16th century maps and was described in detail by explorers who claimed it was haunted by strange creatures and evil spirits. For Iceland, a substantial island supposedly located south of Iceland appeared on maps for over 100 years, complete with detailed coastlines, settlements, and even political boundaries. These phantom islands likely resulted from a combination of navigational errors, mirage effects like Fata Morgana, temporary volcanic islands, or simply cartographic errors repeated across generations. Some may have been deliberate fabrications by mapmakers seeking to catch plagiarists, or by explorers attempting to claim discoveries that would bring fame and financial reward. Whatever their origins, these ghost islands remind us that even in our modern era of satellite imaging and GPS, the ocean still holds the capacity to confuse and mislead human observers. Among the most mysterious phantom islands was Bermeja, which appeared on maps of the Gulf of Mexico from the 16th century until the early 2000s. The island's disappearance became the subject of conspiracy theories in Mexico, as its existence would have significantly extended Mexican territorial waters and oil drilling rights. Some speculated the CIA had somehow destroyed the island to benefit American oil interests, while geologists suggested it might have been a temporary landmass created by underwater volcanic activity. Historical documents described it in detail, an oval-shaped, reddish island approximately 80 square kilometers in size, located about 160 kilometers north of the Yucatan Peninsula. Modern bathymetric surveys show no underwater structure that could have been the island, nor any evidence of a collapsed land formation in the area. The mystery deepened when researchers discovered that early navigational instruments were actually quite accurate in the region, making a simple mapping error unlikely. Bermeja remains one of the ocean's most enduring cartographic mysteries, an island that was mapped, described, and visited for centuries before seemingly vanishing from the face of the Earth. The ocean doesn't just create phantom islands, it also occasionally produces real but temporary islands that appear and disappear with volcanic activity. In 2013, a volcanic eruption near Tonga created a brand new island that initially measured about 1 mile long and 2,000 feet wide, rising 400 feet above sea level. Scientists expected this newborn land to erode away within months, but it has persisted for years, even developing a rudimentary ecosystem as plants and birds began to colonize it. Throughout history, sailors have reported witnessing the violent birth of islands, with water boiling as submarine volcanoes push new land above the surface. These ephemeral islands represent some of the youngest land on Earth, providing unique opportunities to study how barren volcanic rock transforms into living ecosystems. Some appear and disappear within weeks or months, while others stabilize and become permanent additions to our maps, the boundary between phantom and real islands sometimes shifting with geological processes. These volcanic bursts remind us that our planet remains geologically active, with the ocean floor continuing to create new land through the same processes that have shaped Earth for billions of years. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most perplexing chemical mysteries, the strange case of ocean quakes that release massive amounts of methane gas from the seafloor. These underwater seismic events can suddenly destabilize methane hydrate deposits, ice-like structures that trap enormous quantities of methane gas in a crystalline water lattice. When disturbed, these deposits can release their trapped gas in explosive bursts that send massive bubbles rising toward the surface. Ships unfortunate enough to be caught above such eruptions can lose buoyancy as the water becomes saturated with gas bubbles, potentially sinking with little warning. Some researchers believe this phenomenon might explain certain vessel disappearances attributed to the Bermuda Triangle and similar maritime mystery zones. The sudden release of methane, a potent greenhouse gas from these underwater deposits, may have played roles in past climate change events, including rapid warming periods in Earth's history. As our oceans warm due to climate change, scientists worry that vast methane hydrate deposits may become increasingly unstable, potentially creating a feedback loop of accelerated warming. Deep on the ocean floor lies another chemical puzzle, the strange underwater lakes of supersaline water that can preserve organic material for thousands of years. Objects that fall into these dense brine pools can remain almost perfectly preserved, protected from the bacteria and other decomposers that would normally break them down. Researchers have recovered nearly intact shipwreck timbers, animal remains, and even ancient human artifacts from these underwater time capsules. The extreme salt concentration creates an environment so hostile that most microorganisms cannot survive, effectively pickling anything that sinks into these submarine lakes. Some scientists speculate that similar conditions on other planetary bodies, particularly Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus, might likewise preserve evidence of extraterrestrial life. These natural preservation chambers offer rare glimpses into the past, with some containing materials that have remained virtually unchanged since before human civilization began. As you drift ever closer to sleep, imagine these perfect preservation pools on the dark ocean floor, silently guarding their ancient treasures far from human eyes. Let's now explore a different kind of ocean mystery, the strange case of rogue tidal waves that occur in otherwise calm waters with no apparent seismic trigger. Unlike tsunamis, which result from earthquakes or landslides, these meteotsunami are generated by atmospheric conditions, typically fast-moving weather systems that create pressure disturbances. These waves can reach heights of 6 feet or more and strike with no warning on perfectly clear days, making them particularly dangerous for coastal communities and beachgoers. The Great Lakes region of North America experiences these phenomena regularly, with locals referring to them as seiche, pronounced seiche, sudden water level changes that can empty and refill harbors within minutes. Similar events have been recorded in the Mediterranean Sea, where they're known as Marabillo, in Sicily and Risaga, in the Balearic Islands, sometimes causing significant damage to moored vessels. What makes these waves particularly mysterious is their amplification mechanism. Small initial waves grow dramatically as they approach shore due to resonance effects in harbors and bays. They represent another way that the interface between atmosphere and ocean creates unexpected and sometimes dangerous phenomena that remain difficult to predict despite modern technology. The ocean produces other atmospheric mysteries, including the strange fog banks that appear suddenly off certain coastlines, containing unusual electrical properties. Sailors and coastal residents have reported encountering dense, glowing fog that seems to respond to sound or movement, pulsing with faint internal light. These unusual fog formations have been linked to Stat Elmo's fire, an electrical weather phenomenon where pointed objects discharge in a glowing brush-like pattern. The combination of salt spray, atmospheric conditions, and electromagnetic fields can create highly charged water droplets that generate their own light through a process similar to how fluorescent bulbs work. Some researchers believe these electrically active fog banks might explain certain maritime legends, including tales of ghost ships glowing in the mist. The phenomenon is rare but well documented, particularly in regions with unique combinations of ocean currents, air temperatures, and geological features. These glowing mists represent another boundary where ocean and atmosphere interact to create conditions that seem almost supernatural to those who encounter them. Now let's drift toward one of the ocean's most mesmerizing mysteries, the strange patterns created by sand on the seafloor, which form and reform in endless variations. Ocean currents moving over sand create ripples, waves, and geometric formations that range from simple parallel lines to complex honeycomb and spiral patterns. Some of these patterns migrate across the seafloor, with entire fields of sand ripples moving like slow-motion waves while maintaining their overall structure. The interaction between current direction, particle size, and slope creates these self-organizing systems where order emerges spontaneously from the random movement of countless sand grains. Divers report almost hypnotic experiences watching these patterns shift and flow beneath them, especially when sunlight creates moving shadows that enhance the three-dimensional effect. Certain marine creatures have evolved to mimic these sand patterns in their skin textures and behaviors, becoming virtually invisible against the undulating background. The mathematics behind these formations, known as Turing patterns, appear throughout nature, from zebra stripes to cloud formations, all arising from similar principles of self-organization. Deep beneath the ocean surface lies another mathematical mystery, the perfect spiral hunting patterns of certain shark species that follow the golden ratio. When hunting, hammerhead sharks often swim in spiraling patterns that closely approximate logarithmic spirals, the same mathematical form found in nautilus shells and hurricane formations. This pattern optimizes their search efficiency, allowing them to cover maximum area while expending minimum energy, essentially an instinctive application of advanced search theory. What's remarkable is that similar spiral patterns appear in the hunting behaviors of completely unrelated predators, from hawks diving for prey to microscopic bacteria seeking food. These convergent behaviors suggest that evolution repeatedly discovers the same mathematical optimizations, regardless of the type of organism or environment. The sharks aren't solving differential equations, yet they move as if guided by the elegant mathematics that governs efficient movement through three-dimensional space. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these perfect living spirals moving through dark water, ancient predators following geometric patterns embedded in the very fabric of nature itself. The ocean contains other mathematical wonders, including the remarkable hexagonal patterns formed by bubbles rising from certain hydrothermal vents. These perfect honeycomb arrangements of bubbles result from the same physical principles that create identical patterns in soap films, beehives, and certain crystal structures. The hexagon represents nature's most efficient solution for dividing a surface with minimal material, packing the maximum number of cells with the least amount of boundary. What's particularly fascinating is that these patterns form spontaneously, without any central coordination or design, through simple physical processes seeking equilibrium. Similar hexagonal patterns appear at vastly different scales throughout the ocean, from microscopic plankton skeletons to massive basalt columns formed by cooling lava. This recurring geometry reflects fundamental physical laws that operate universally, creating order from chaos through principles of energy minimization. The ocean thus becomes a vast laboratory demonstrating nature's elegant mathematics, principles that human engineers and architects have borrowed for thousands of years. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most baffling biological mysteries, the question of how sea turtles navigate across thousands of miles of featureless ocean to return to tiny nesting beaches. Female sea turtles return to lay their eggs on the exact beaches where they were born, despite having traveled thousands of miles through open ocean for decades since their birth. Scientists have discovered they possess an internal magnetic map that detects both the intensity and angle of Earth's magnetic field, essentially giving them a GPS-like ability. What's particularly remarkable is that this system compensates for the natural drift of Earth's magnetic field over time, suggesting either genetic programming that anticipates these changes or some unknown calibration mechanism. The precision of this navigation would be impressive for humans using modern technology, yet these ancient reptiles accomplish it with brain structures that evolved millions of years ago. Some researchers believe they may also use other cues, including sound signatures of specific coastlines, chemical traces in ocean currents, or even star patterns for nighttime navigation. This extraordinary navigational ability represents one of nature's most sophisticated guidance systems, operating through mechanisms we still cannot fully replicate with our most advanced technology. The ocean holds other navigational mysteries, including the bizarre case of whale strandings that continue to baffle marine biologists, despite decades of research. Mass strandings, where dozens or even hundreds of whales beach themselves simultaneously, often occur in specific locations that act as whale traps due to their geography and acoustic properties. Some researchers believe these events result from navigational errors when whales follow prey too close to shore, while others suggest they might be triggered by social bonds, healthy whales refusing to abandon a sick or confused pod member. More controversial theories propose connections to solar storms that temporarily disrupt Earth's magnetic field, potentially interfering with cetacean navigation systems. Military sonar has been implicated in some strandings, with necropsies revealing internal injuries consistent with the effects of powerful acoustic energy. What makes these events particularly heartbreaking is that whales, among the most intelligent creatures on Earth, seem unable to recognize the danger even after multiple individuals have beached. These strandings remain one of the ocean's most visible and disturbing mysteries, intelligent social beings behaving in ways that lead directly to their deaths, for reasons we cannot fully explain. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most persistent unsolved cases, the mystery of what causes the strange underwater formations known as crop circles on the seafloor, off Japan. These perfect geometric patterns, spanning up to 6 feet in diameter with intricate ridges and valleys, first baffled scientists when discovered in 1995. The mystery was eventually solved in 2011, when underwater cameras captured small male pufferfish, creating these intricate formations using only their fins to move sand. They spend days working tirelessly, decorating the ridges with shell fragments and other material to attract females to the smooth central area where eggs can be laid. What's remarkable is the disparity in size. These 5-inch fish create structures over 15 times their body length, working continuously for 7 nights and 9 days. It's equivalent to a human building, a precisely detailed structure, the size of a football field, using only materials they can move with their breath. This discovery highlighted how many ocean mysteries have perfectly natural explanations that are nevertheless more extraordinary than anything humans might have imagined. Let's drift toward another deep ocean puzzle, the strange case of freak waves that seem to appear from nowhere, defying standard wave physics and statistical predictions. Unlike normal ocean waves that follow relatively predictable patterns, these rogue waves can reach heights 2 or 3 times greater than the surrounding sea state. For centuries, sailors reported encountering walls of water that rose suddenly from otherwise manageable seas, often destroying ships before they could take evasive action. These accounts were dismissed as exaggerations until 1995, when scientific instruments at the Dropner oil platform in the North Sea recorded a 26-meter, 85-foot wave in a sea with significant wave height of only 12 meters. This conclusive evidence forced oceanographers to reconsider wave formation theories and develop new models that could account for these statistical outliers. Current understanding suggests they result from constructive interference, where multiple wave systems align by chance to combine their energy briefly in one location. The ocean's vastness makes these events statistically inevitable, the maritime equivalent of winning a terrible lottery where the prize is encountering a wall of water that seems to defy the laws of nature. The ocean contains other physical anomalies, including underwater whirlpools strong enough to trap and sink small vessels. Unlike their surface counterparts, these submarine vortices can remain stable for weeks or months, creating persistent hazards in certain coastal areas. They form where strong currents interact with underwater topography or where significant density differences exist between adjacent water masses. The most powerful of these whirlpools create visible depressions in the ocean surface, sometimes accompanied by unusual sound effects as air is drawn into their centers. Ancient maritime cultures incorporated these phenomena into their mythology, attributing them to sea monsters or angry deities that consumed unwary sailors. Modern science understands their fluid dynamics, but predicting exactly when and where they'll form remains challenging due to the complex interaction of variables involved. These spinning underwater traps represent another way the ocean creates localized extremes of physical forces that can overwhelm human technology and intuition. Among the ocean's most persistent mysteries is the phenomenon known as dead water, a strange effect where ships lose power and maneuverability despite calm surface conditions. This occurs when a layer of fresh water, often from melting ice or river outflow, sits atop denser salt water, creating an internal boundary invisible from the surface. A vessel moving through such stratified water generates waves at this underwater boundary that drain energy from the ship's forward motion, essentially trapping it in a medium that absorbs its propulsive force. Polar explorer Fridtjof Nansen first documented this phenomenon scientifically in 1893 when his ship Fram became mysteriously immobilized off the Siberian coast. The effect can be so pronounced that a vessel at full power may move at less than 1 knot or even come to a complete stop, creating the unsettling impression of being held by some invisible force. Dead water phenomena have been implicated in historical maritime disasters and continue to occasionally affect modern vessels, particularly in polar regions and fjords. It's another example of how the ocean's invisible structures can create effects that seem supernatural until science reveals the physical principles behind them. Let's now drift toward one of the ocean's most spectacular visual phenomena, the strange and beautiful underwater light rays known as sunbeams or God rays. These shafts of light penetrate the water surface and appear as distinct beams illuminating particles suspended in the water column, creating ethereal patterns that shift with surface waves. The effect results from the same principle that makes sunbeams visible through forest canopies or clouds, light rays traveling through small openings while surrounded by shadow. Underwater, these rays take on additional qualities as they refract through the water, creating dynamic patterns that divers describe as among the most beautiful sights in nature. The beams appear especially dramatic in underwater caves or cenotes, where they pierce through ceiling openings to create spotlights in otherwise dark waters. Ancient Maya considered cenotes with these light effects to be sacred spaces, portals to the underworld where light from the heavens penetrated into darkness. As you drift even closer to sleep, imagine these golden shafts illuminating dark blue water, dancing and shifting with the rhythm of waves passing overhead. The ocean produces other remarkable light effects, including the mysterious phenomenon of underwater rainbows that form when conditions are just right. Unlike atmospheric rainbows that require raindrops, underwater rainbows occur when sunlight passes through thermoclines, boundaries between water layers of different temperatures and densities. These underwater spectrums often appear as undulating bands of color that shift and ripple with water movement, creating a more fluid and dynamic display than their atmospheric counterparts. Divers report these phenomena most commonly in tropical waters, where strong surface heating creates distinct temperature gradients at predictable depths. The physics behind these underwater rainbows involves the same principles of refraction that create traditional rainbows, but with water density rather than raindrops as the refracting medium. Like many ocean phenomena, they're ephemeral and unpredictable, appearing suddenly when light angle, water clarity, and temperature gradients align perfectly. These underwater spectrums remind us that the ocean contains parallel versions of many atmospheric phenomena, transformed by the properties of their liquid medium into something both familiar and alien. Let's explore one of the ocean's most puzzling chemical mysteries, the strange case of underwater lakes and rivers, with distinct shorelines despite existing entirely beneath the ocean surface. These pools of supersaline water form when salt deposits on the seafloor dissolve, creating brine so dense it doesn't mix with the surrounding seawater. The boundary between these brine pools and regular seawater is so distinct that submarines can actually float on their surfaces, unable to penetrate the dense layer. These underwater lakes have their own waves and shorelines, with specialized ecosystems of extremophile bacteria and other organisms living at their edges. Some contain water that has been isolated from the main ocean for thousands of years, creating unique chemical environments with potential applications in biotechnology and medicine. Divers who visit these underwater lakes report an eerie visual distortion when looking through the boundary layer, similar to the heat shimmer above hot asphalt. These chemical time capsules might provide insights into ancient ocean chemistry and the evolution of life in extreme environments. Deep beneath the waves lies another chemical puzzle, the mystery of how certain marine organisms manufacture compounds so complex that pharmaceutical chemists struggle to synthesize them in laboratories. Cone snails produce venom cocktails containing thousands of different peptides, many with potential applications in medicine for treating pain, epilepsy, and other neurological conditions. Sea sponges synthesize chemicals so structurally complex that when first discovered, chemists couldn't believe they were made by living organisms rather than elaborate laboratory processes. What's particularly remarkable is that these organisms have no brains. They create molecular structures of extraordinary complexity, using chemical pathways encoded in relatively simple genetic instructions. Some marine natural products have structures so unusual, they force chemists to revise their understanding of what's chemically possible in biological systems. The ocean essentially functions as Earth's oldest and largest pharmaceutical laboratory, with millions of years of evolutionary pressure driving the development of these compounds. Many potentially life-saving medications likely remain undiscovered in marine organisms, particularly in the deep ocean, where unique chemical adaptations have evolved in isolation. Now let's drift toward one of the ocean's most enduring mysteries, the strange case of floating islands of pumice stone that can transport entire ecosystems across thousands of miles. When underwater volcanoes erupt, they often produce highly porous pumice stone that floats on the ocean surface, sometimes forming rafts that span hundreds of square miles. These natural rafts can persist for years, slowly traveling with ocean currents while being colonized by marine organisms that use them as vehicles for dispersal. Researchers have documented hundreds of species living on pumice rafts, from microscopic algae to crabs, corals, and even small fish that shelter in the spaces between stones. These floating ecosystems may play crucial roles in replenishing coral reefs after bleaching events, carrying coral polyps and other reef organisms to damaged areas. Throughout geological history, pumice rafts have likely been important vectors for species dispersal, helping marine life colonize new territories across ocean barriers. These drifting stone islands represent nature's own vessels, life rafts that connect distant ecosystems in ways that continue to influence marine biodiversity patterns today. The ocean holds other floating mysteries, including the strange phenomena of natural oil slicks that appear without human involvement. Natural seeps from the seafloor release an estimated 600,000 tons of oil annually, nearly half as much as enters the marine environment through human activities. These natural seeps create slicks that can cover hundreds of square miles, yet they support unique ecosystems of microbes that have evolved to metabolize hydrocarbons. Unlike human oil spills that occur suddenly and overwhelm local ecosystems, these natural seeps have existed for thousands or millions of years, allowing for evolutionary adaptation. The chemistry of naturally seeped oil differs slightly from processed petroleum, making it somewhat less toxic and more readily biodegradable. Specialized bacteria that consume these hydrocarbons play crucial roles in preventing natural oil accumulation in the ocean and may hold keys to more effective oil spill remediation. These natural petroleum releases remind us that many substances we consider pollutants have always existed in the environment, with natural systems evolving to process them long before human industrial activity. Let's explore another ocean mystery: the strange ability of certain marine microbes to eat electrons directly from their environment, essentially living on electricity. Discovered only in the past decade, these electrotropic bacteria can draw electrons directly from conductive surfaces or dissolved minerals without requiring organic carbon. Some can even pass electrons directly to other microbes, creating living electrical circuits that transfer energy through physical connections between cells. This previously unknown metabolic pathway functions like a biological battery, with different species acting as anodes and cathodes in a living electrical system. These microbes appear particularly abundant around hydrothermal vents and cold seeps, where chemical gradients create natural electrical potentials in the seafloor. Scientists speculate this may be one of the oldest metabolic strategies on Earth, possibly predating photosynthesis and offering clues to how life might exist on other planets. These living electrical systems challenge our fundamental understanding of what constitutes food and suggest that life might be sustained by energy sources far more diverse than we previously imagined. Among the ocean's most mind-bending phenomena are creatures that challenge our basic understanding of what constitutes an individual organism versus a colony. Portuguese man-o-war appears to be a single jellyfish-like creature, but is actually a colony of specialized organisms called zooids, each performing different functions like feeding, defense, or reproduction. These zooids are so specialized and interdependent that they cannot survive independently, functioning more like organs in a body than individual animals. Similarly, certain deep-sea siphonophores form colonies that can reach lengths of over 100 feet, making them among the longest living structures in the ocean. The boundary between colonial and individual existence becomes philosophical in these cases. Is a Portuguese man-o-war one animal or many? Evolutionary biologists see parallels between these colonial organisms in the transition from single-cell to multicellular life, billions of years ago. These living collectives challenge our intuitive understanding of individuality and demonstrate how cooperation between originally independent organisms can lead to higher levels of biological organization. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most enduring mysteries: the strange navigational abilities of animals that can find their way across thousands of miles of featureless ocean. Humpback whales migrate between feeding grounds near the poles and breeding areas in tropical waters, often swimming in remarkably straight lines despite covering distances of up to 10,000 miles. Bluefin tuna tagged off Japan have been recaptured off Mexico, having crossed the entire Pacific Ocean and returned to the exact same feeding grounds year after year. Leatherback turtles navigate across the entire Atlantic Ocean, from Caribbean breeding beaches to feeding grounds off Africa's coast, with pinpoint accuracy. These feats would be impressive for humans using modern technology, yet these animals accomplish them with brain structures evolved millions of years ago. Scientists believe they integrate multiple navigational cues, including Earth's magnetic field, ocean currents, water chemistry, celestial navigation, and possibly even sound patterns. These remarkable abilities represent some of nature's most sophisticated guidance systems, operating through mechanisms we still cannot fully replicate with our most advanced technology. The ocean contains other navigational wonders, including the mysterious ability of certain fish to find their way home to specific tide pools after being displaced. Experiments with intertidal fish like the woolly sculpin have shown they can return to their home pools even when placed in completely unfamiliar areas along the coast. They accomplish this without landmarks visible from water level, suggesting they may use a combination of wave patterns, coastal topography, and chemical signatures to navigate. What's particularly impressive is that these small-brained fish accomplish navigational feats comparable to those of birds and mammals with much larger and more complex brains. Some species even compensate for tidal cycles in their navigation, timing their movements to coincide with appropriate water levels for safe travel. These abilities suggest that sophisticated spatial awareness and navigational capacity may be far more widespread in the animal kingdom than previously believed. As you drift ever closer to sleep, imagine these small determined fish finding their way home across seemingly featureless coastlines, guided by senses and abilities we're only beginning to understand. Let's explore one of the ocean's most beautiful mysteries: the strange synchronized spawning of coral reefs, where entire ecosystems reproduce simultaneously on just a few nights each year. Triggered by lunar cycles, water temperature, and day length, corals release their eggs and sperm in a coordinated spectacle that turns the ocean into a living snowstorm. On the Great Barrier Reef, This mass spawning event typically occurs after the full moon in late spring, with different coral species releasing their gametes in a precise sequence. Scientists can predict these events to the day, but still don't fully understand all the environmental cues that trigger such perfect timing across thousands of individual organisms. Some reefs synchronize their spawning across hundreds of miles, suggesting communication mechanisms or environmental triggers operating on oceanic scales. This reproductive strategy increases the chances of successful fertilization for organisms that cannot move to find mates. The sight of an entire reef releasing billions of pink and white bundles that float upward in underwater clouds is one of nature's most spectacular reproductive displays. Now, as you finally drift off to sleep, consider that even after centuries of exploration and scientific advancement, we've mapped less than 20% of our oceans in detail. The mysteries we've explored tonight represent just a fraction of what remains unknown in the blue depths that cover most of our world. New species, phenomena, and discoveries await in the vast underwater wilderness that surrounds our familiar terrestrial home. The same waters that gave birth to all life on Earth continue to surprise, challenge, and inspire us with their complexity and alien beauty. Perhaps in your dreams you'll visit those impossible realms where humans cannot go, the crushing depths, the eternal darkness, the alien landscapes of our planet's last true wilderness. Sleep well, knowing that while you rest, the ancient rhythms of the ocean continue, tides rising and falling, currents circling the globe, life flourishing in the depths. And tomorrow, the mysteries will still be there, waiting for those brave or curious enough to seek them out in the endless blue that surrounds us all. Now let's drift toward one of the ocean's most ethereal environments, the mysterious world of underwater caves and cenotes that connect to vast subterranean river systems. These flooded limestone caverns, particularly abundant in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, form when acidic rainwater dissolves the soft limestone bedrock over thousands of years. Some extend for hundreds of miles, creating interconnected waterways that flow beneath the surface world, completely hidden from above. Within these caves exist some of Earth's most alien environments, places where normal rules of evolution have been suspended, creating creatures found nowhere else. Blind albino fish navigate by sensing minute pressure changes in the water, having lost eyes that serve no purpose in the eternal darkness. Specialized crustaceans, including the remarkable remipedes, the world's only venomous crustacean, hunt in these lightless waters using chemical senses rather than vision. Ancient Maya considered these cenotes sacred portals to the underworld, sometimes using them for ritual sacrifices and offerings to rain deities who were believed to reside in these watery depths. The boundaries between fresh and salt water within these cave systems create another remarkable phenomenon, haloclines, where different water densities create visible underwater layers. These distinct boundaries appear as shimmering, mirror-like surfaces that distort light and create visual effects, reminiscent of science fiction films. Divers passing through haloclines experience visual distortions and strange sensory effects as their bodies move between water masses with different physical properties. The chemistry at these boundaries supports unique microbial communities, some producing striking colors where the fresh and salt water meet. In some caves, multiple haloclines stack one above another, creating a layered underwater world where different ecosystems exist in close proximity yet remain distinct. Hydrogen sulfide often accumulates in deeper cave sections, creating toxic zones that appear as misty, cloudy layers, beautiful but potentially lethal to unwary explorers. These underwater caves represent one of Earth's final frontiers, with new passages and chambers still being discovered by specialized cave divers who risk their lives to map these subterranean waterways. Among the most remarkable inhabitants of these cave systems are the eyeless creatures that have evolved in complete isolation from the surface world. The Mexican blind cavefish has not only lost its eyes, but has developed an enhanced lateral line system that detects minute water movements with extraordinary sensitivity. Some cave-dwelling crustaceans have evolved bodies so transparent that their internal organs are clearly visible, a trait that serves no obvious purpose in perpetual darkness. Certain cave-adapted organisms can survive in water with oxygen levels so low that surface creatures would suffocate within minutes. Perhaps most remarkably, some species show extremely long lifespans compared to their surface relatives, a possible adaptation to the stable but resource-poor cave environment. The evolutionary history of these cave dwellers provides a perfect natural experiment in how organisms adapt when cut off from the outside world for millions of years. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these pale, ghostly creatures moving through crystal-clear underwater passages, their world defined by touch and chemical signals rather than light. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most extreme environments, the Haddle Zone, comprising the planet's deepest trenches that plunge more than 6 miles beneath the surface. These trenches form at subduction zones, where one tectonic plate forces its way beneath another, creating long, narrow chasms that rank among Earth's most inaccessible places. The pressure at these depths exceeds 1,100 atmospheres, equivalent to balancing the weight of 25 jumbo jets on your fingernail. Yet even in these crushing depths, life thrives in surprising abundance and diversity, with specialized creatures adapted to conditions that would instantly kill surface organisms. Hadal snailfish, discovered only in recent decades, have evolved bodies containing special chemical compounds that prevent proteins from being crushed under extreme pressure. Their cells contain high concentrations of trimethylamine oxide, TMAO, which stabilizes proteins against pressure effects that would normally destroy cellular machinery. What's particularly fascinating is that the concentration of this compound increases with depth, a perfect correlation that suggests evolutionary fine-tuning to specific pressure environments. The trenches also host mysterious xenophyophores, single-celled organisms that grow to sizes that seem impossible for a lone cell. These strange protists can reach diameters of several inches, making them among the largest single-celled organisms on Earth. They construct intricate protective shells from whatever materials they find on the seafloor, essentially building their homes grain by grain. Some species incorporate radioactive particles into their shells, apparently without harm, accumulating radiation levels that would be lethal to most organisms. Their enormous size challenges our understanding of what's possible within the constraints of a single cell, demonstrating how extreme environments can drive equally extreme adaptations. These giant cells play important ecological roles in trench ecosystems, providing structure and habitat for smaller organisms in an otherwise featureless environment. They represent life pushed to its theoretical limits, showing how evolution finds solutions to challenges that would seem insurmountable from our surface-dwelling perspective. Deep in these trenches, scientists have discovered another biological mystery: creatures that appear to live almost indefinitely, with no detectable signs of aging. Certain sea anemones and tube worms show no evidence of senescence, the normal deterioration of cellular function over time that leads to aging in most organisms. In laboratory settings, some anemones have lived for more than 80 years without showing any decline in reproductive capacity or increased mortality. Deep-sea tube worms at hydrothermal vents are estimated to live for over 250 years, maintaining the same metabolic rates throughout their lives. What makes these discoveries particularly significant is that they challenge fundamental assumptions about the inevitability of aging in complex organisms. These seemingly immortal creatures may hold keys to understanding how cellular damage accumulates over time, and whether this process can be slowed or even reversed. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine these ageless beings in the darkness of the trenches, their biological clocks somehow suspended in the extreme conditions of their deep-sea homes. The ocean trenches also harbor another enigma: microbes that can survive being subjected to pressures far greater than exist naturally on Earth. When scientists collected bacteria from the Mariana Trench and subjected them to experimental pressures up to 100,000 atmospheres, far exceeding any natural condition on our planet, some remain viable. This extreme pressure tolerance raises questions about the upper limits of life's adaptability and the potential for organisms to survive in environments we'd previously considered impossible. Some researchers speculate these ultra-pressure-resistant microbes might represent evolutionary remnants from Earth's early history, when impacts from large asteroids created momentary pressure conditions far beyond anything normally experienced. Others suggest they might have applications in astrobiology, as models for how life might survive in high-pressure environments on other worlds, like the deep subsurface oceans of Europa or Enceladus. The discovery challenges our understanding of the physical limits that constrain life and suggests biological adaptability may be far greater than we've imagined. These pressure-loving extremophiles expand our concept of life's potential habitats and raise profound questions about where else in the universe similar adaptations might have evolved. Let's drift toward another ocean mystery: the strange phenomenon of underwater explosions that occur spontaneously in certain deep-sea environments. These natural detonations can result from sudden methane releases, underwater landslides, or volcanic activity, sometimes creating shockwaves powerful enough to be detected by seismic monitoring stations thousands of miles away. In 1908, an unexplained underwater explosion near the Azores was so powerful that it broke underwater communication cables and was recorded by barometers around the world. Some underwater explosions create brief bubbles of superheated steam that can reach temperatures comparable to the surface of the sun for fractions of a second. These extreme conditions can trigger unusual chemical reactions, creating compounds not normally found in nature that rain down onto the seafloor. Researchers have found evidence of such explosion events in seafloor sediment cores, suggesting they occur regularly on geological timescales and may influence deep ocean chemistry. These natural underwater detonations represent another example of how the ocean occasionally generates extremes of temperature and pressure that rival the most hostile environments in our solar system. The ocean also produces gentle mysteries, including the curious case of beach bubbles, perfectly spherical bubbles that form on certain shorelines and can roll intact for surprising distances. These strange formations occur when specific combinations of algal compounds, seawater minerals, and wave action create unusually stable bubble structures. Unlike normal soap bubbles which pop within seconds, these natural ocean bubbles can sometimes last for minutes or even hours under the right conditions. They roll along beaches like transparent marbles, reflecting sunlight in rainbow patterns as they journey up and down the sand with each wave. Children have incorporated these natural phenomena into beach folklore worldwide, with various traditions attributing magical properties to anyone who can catch one intact. The science behind their unusual stability involves complex interactions between proteins, carbohydrates, and fatty compounds, produced by marine algae and bacteria. These ephemeral spheres represent another example of how ordinary materials combining under specific conditions can create seemingly magical natural phenomena. Deep beneath the waves lies a different kind of mystery, underwater waterfalls that dwarf anything found on land yet remain completely invisible from the surface. The Denmark Strait Cataract between Greenland and Iceland is the world's largest waterfall by volume, with 175 million cubic feet of water plunging nearly 11,500 feet down the continental slope every second. Cold, dense water from the Arctic flows over a massive underwater ridge and plunges downward through warmer water, creating what would be a spectacle more than 3 times the height of Angel Falls if it were visible. These submarine cataracts form at the boundaries between water masses of different temperatures and salinities, where density differences create flows that behave like rivers within the ocean itself. Specialized underwater cameras using dye tracers have revealed these massive flows, showing how they tumble down submarine slopes with the same turbulent patterns as surface waterfalls. These invisible giants play crucial roles in global ocean circulation, helping drive the currents that distribute heat around our planet and influence climate patterns worldwide. As you continue to drift towards sleep, imagine these colossal underwater cascades flowing silently through the darkness, their enormous power hidden beneath a placid surface that gives no hint of the spectacle below. Let's explore one of the ocean's most beautiful mysteries, the strange world of marine snow, a continuous shower of organic debris that falls from the upper ocean to the deep. This gentle underwater blizzard consists of dead plankton, fecal matter, mucus, dust, and other particles slowly drifting down through the water column. It falls at a rate of just a few hundred feet per day, meaning particles can take weeks to reach the seafloor in the deepest parts of the ocean. Along the way, this marine snow feeds countless organisms that filter it from the water or collect it where it settles, providing a crucial food source for deep-sea ecosystems. Without this constant organic rain, the deep ocean would be a biological desert, as sunlight cannot penetrate to drive photosynthesis at these depths. Marine snow essentially connects the sunlit surface world with the dark abyss, transferring energy and carbon from one realm to the other. In some ways, it's the deep ocean's life support system, a slow-motion supply chain that has operated continuously for billions of years. What's particularly fascinating about marine snow is how it preserves a record of ocean conditions and events over time. As particles settle on the seafloor, they build up layers that can be read like pages in a history book, recording changes in ocean chemistry, temperature, and biological activity. Sudden increases in marine snow can indicate plankton blooms or mass mortality events in the waters above, leaving distinctive signatures in seafloor sediments. Scientists use core samples of these sediments to reconstruct past ocean conditions, going back millions of years, including ancient climate shifts, extinction events, and asteroid impacts. The ocean floor is essentially Earth's most complete historical archive, written in layers of what once was marine snow. In this way, the ocean keeps a record of its own history, a chronicle written not in words but in the steady accumulation of particles from above. As you drift ever closer to sleep, imagine this silent underwater snowfall continuing as it has for eons, each tiny particle carrying information about the world above to be preserved in the darkness below. Among the ocean's most peculiar features are seafloor pockmarks, circular depressions that appear in fields containing thousands of individual craters across the seabed. These mysterious features, which can be hundreds of feet in diameter and tens of feet deep, result from fluids or gases erupting through sediment, but the exact mechanisms remain poorly understood. Some appear to be actively venting methane or other gases, while others seem dormant, possibly representing ancient eruption sites from long ago. Certain marine creatures preferentially inhabit these depressions, creating unique microecosystems within the larger seafloor environment. The distribution of pockmarks globally may provide clues about the location of deep petroleum and gas deposits, or areas of tectonic activity. These submarine craters represent another way the ocean floor breathes, releasing pressure and materials from deep within the Earth in discrete, focused locations. Their perfect circular shape often creates an eerie, otherworldly landscape on the seafloor, as if the bottom had been systematically bombed or impacted by a rain of giant meteors. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most persistent mysteries, the strange disappearance of vessels and aircraft in certain regions that have gained reputations as maritime triangles of doom. The Bermuda Triangle, Dragon's Triangle, near Japan, and the South Atlantic Anomaly have all developed notoriety for unexplained disappearances of ships and planes. While many cases have rational explanations involving weather, human error, or equipment failure, some incidents include puzzling elements that resist simple explanation. Reports of unusual compass behavior, instrument malfunctions, electronic fog, and spatial disorientation occur with curious regularity in these areas. Some scientific theories point to methane hydrate releases that could reduce water density enough to sink ships, or electromagnetic anomalies that might interfere with navigation equipment. Unusual weather phenomena in these regions, including microbursts and rogue waves, may create conditions far more dangerous than they appear to approaching vessels. Whether purely natural phenomena or something more mysterious, these regions continue to claim victims in modern times despite advanced navigation technology and safety systems. Among the most puzzling historical cases is the disappearance of Flight 19, 5 Navy torpedo bombers that vanished without trace during a routine training exercise in December 1945. The experienced flight leader reported compass malfunctions and disorientation, famously transmitting, "Everything looks wrong, even the ocean doesn't look as it should." All 5 aircraft vanished completely, along with a search plane sent to find them. 27 men lost without any wreckage ever being recovered despite one of the most extensive air and sea searches in history. The incident became even more mysterious when Navy investigators concluded, "We are not able to even make a good guess as to what happened." What makes this case particularly baffling is that multiple aircraft disappeared simultaneously, eliminating many potential explanations that might apply to a single plane. Modern analysis suggests a combination of factors including compass failures, fuel exhaustion, and deteriorating weather, but cannot fully explain the complete absence of wreckage. This incident, perhaps more than any other, cemented the Bermuda Triangle in public consciousness as a place where the normal rules of navigation and physics might temporarily suspend. The ocean contains other navigational anomalies, including the curious phenomenon known as the Devil's Sea or Dragon's Triangle off the coast of Japan. This region has claimed an unusually high number of vessels over centuries, with Japanese records of disappearances dating back to the 13th century. Legend holds that ancient Japanese mariners would sail around this area regardless of time lost, believing the zone to be inhabited by dragons that devoured unwary ships and sailors. Modern scientists point to the region's frequent underwater volcanic activity, which can suddenly change water temperature, density, and gas content without warning. Submarine volcanoes in the area occasionally create temporary islands that pose navigation hazards before disappearing beneath the waves again. The convergence of major ocean currents in this region creates unpredictable water conditions that can challenge even experienced captains. Whether the explanations are geological, oceanographic, or something more mysterious, the area maintains one of the highest rates of maritime incidents in the Pacific. Let's drift toward one of the ocean's most spectacular visual phenomena, the strange underwater light shows created by bioluminescent organisms that turn entire bays into lakes of living light. In certain locations around the world, conditions align perfectly to support massive concentrations of bioluminescent dinoflagellates, microscopic organisms that flash blue light when disturbed. Puerto Rico's Mosquito Bay, Thailand's Koh Rong, and Jamaica's Luminous Lagoon are among the most famous of these bioluminescent bays, though the phenomenon occurs worldwide. Each tiny organism produces just a microsecond flash, but when trillions are stimulated simultaneously by a wave, boat wake, or swimming motion, the effect is magical. The chemistry behind this cold light is remarkably efficient. Bioluminescence converts nearly 100% of its energy to light with almost no heat waste, making it far more efficient than any human-made light source. Indigenous peoples around the world incorporated these glowing waters into their mythology, often seeing them as manifestations of spirit worlds or the souls of ancestors. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine trailing your hand through water that transforms your every movement into swirls of cool blue fire, an intimate dance with living light. The deep ocean also harbors mechanical mysteries, strange structures on the seafloor that appear artificial but form through natural processes over vast timescales. Perfectly straight lines extending for miles, geometrically precise circles, and arrangements of stones that seem deliberately placed have all been discovered in deep waters. These formations result from specific geological processes, including directional stress fractures, methane seepage patterns, and unique erosion mechanisms working over millions of years. What makes them particularly mysterious is how they mimic human design principles, straight lines, right angles, and geometric patterns we typically associate with intelligent construction. Some of these features have sparked controversies when first discovered, with claims of ancient civilizations or even extraterrestrial intervention before geological explanations were found. The ocean's ability to create such seemingly intentional patterns highlights how natural processes operating over timescales beyond human experience can produce results that appear designed. These formations remind us that our intuitive distinction between natural and artificial sometimes breaks down when faced with the full range of what geological processes can create. Among the most intriguing of these formations are the underwater rock columns near Yonaguni, Japan. Massive stone structures with sharp angles and terrace features that continue to divide scientific opinion. Discovered in 1987 by a diver searching for new locations to observe hammerhead sharks, these structures include what appear to be steps, columns, roads, and even a pyramid-like formation. Some geologists maintain they are entirely natural, resulting from the region's unique pattern of fracturing in sandstone combined with millions of years of erosion. Others, including some marine archaeologists, believe they show evidence of human modification dating back at least 10,000 years, when sea levels were much lower and the area was above water. The structures sit in an active earthquake zone, making it difficult to determine whether certain features resulted from human activity or natural seismic processes. Whether completely natural, partially modified by ancient humans, or something in between, these formations demonstrate how the boundary between natural and artificial can blur over geological timescales. They represent one of marine archaeology's most persistent puzzles, structures that seem too geometric to be natural, yet too ancient to fit neatly into established timelines of human civilization. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most bizarre biological mysteries, the strange case of immortal jellyfish that can reverse their life cycle when faced with environmental stress or physical damage. The Turritopsis darni jellyfish has developed the remarkable ability to revert from its adult medusa form back to its juvenile polyp stage when injured or starving. This biological reset allows it to begin its life cycle anew, potentially repeating this process indefinitely and earning it the name immortal jellyfish. While predation and disease still claim these creatures in the wild, from a purely cellular perspective, they appear capable of escaping death by old age. This extraordinary ability has made them the subject of intense scientific study, with potential implications for understanding cellular aging in humans. Their cells undergo transdifferentiation, changing from one specialized type to another without going through an intermediate stem cell stage, a process that human medical researchers are eager to understand. These tiny translucent creatures floating in our oceans may hold secrets to biological immortality that could revolutionize medicine if we can unlock their genetic mechanisms. The ocean holds other creatures with seemingly supernatural abilities, including the bizarre mimic octopus that can transform its appearance to impersonate at least 15 different marine species. This remarkable cephalopod can change not just its color and texture, but also its shape and behavior to convincingly mimic toxic, flatfish, venomous sea snakes, stinging lionfish, and other dangerous creatures. What makes this ability particularly extraordinary is that it appears to involve conscious decision-making. The octopus seems to choose which creature to impersonate based on the specific threat it faces. Scientists remain puzzled about how a relatively short-lived animal, living just 2 years, can acquire such detailed knowledge of so many different species' appearances and movements. Even more mysteriously, some of the species it mimics don't share habitats with the mimic octopus, raising questions about how it developed these impersonations. The cognitive complexity required for such sophisticated mimicry challenges our understanding of invertebrate intelligence and suggest octopus cognition may be far more advanced than previously believed. This shape-shifting master of disguise represents one of nature's most sophisticated visual artists, using its body as a living canvas to create perfect replicas of other ocean inhabitants. Among the ocean's most alien-looking inhabitants are mantis shrimp, which possess the most complex eyes in the animal kingdom and a striking mechanism that hits with the force of a bullet. Their compound eyes contain 12 to 16 types of photoreceptor cells, compared to our 3, allowing them to see in ultraviolet, infrared, and polarized light, a visual spectrum we can barely imagine. Some species can even detect circular polarized light, an ability previously unknown in biological systems and currently used in human technology for 3D movies and advanced cameras. Their remarkable striking claws accelerate with the force of a .22 caliber bullet. Moving so fast they create cavitation bubbles that produce heat, approaching the temperature of the sun when they collapse. This strike happens in less than 800 microseconds, so fast that researchers needed specialized high-speed cameras recording at 100,000 frames per second to fully capture the movement. The force is sufficient to break aquarium glass and easily cracks open the shells of their prey, earning them the nickname thumb splitters among fishermen, who have experienced their defensive strikes. These psychedelic colored crustaceans represent one of evolution's most remarkable achievements, creatures with both superhuman vision and a physical attack mechanism that harnesses physics in ways engineers still struggle to replicate. Let's drift toward another ocean mystery, the strange case of marine organisms that use quantum effects in their daily lives, operating at the boundary of physics and biology. Certain fish species appear to detect Earth's magnetic field through quantum entanglement, a phenomenon Einstein called spooky action at a distance, in specialized cells containing magnetite crystals. Some deep-sea creatures have developed vision systems that may exploit quantum coherence to detect the faintest bioluminescent signals in the darkness. European robins and other migratory birds use cryptochrome proteins in their eyes that create quantum-entangled electron pairs, allowing them to literally see Earth's magnetic field lines when navigating over oceans. Photosynthetic bacteria in the ocean use quantum tunneling, where particles pass through energy barriers that should be impassable, to achieve nearly 100% efficiency in converting sunlight to energy. These quantum biological effects represent an emerging frontier in science, suggesting that living organisms have evolved to exploit the strange rules of quantum mechanics. What's particularly remarkable is that these quantum effects occur in warm, wet biological environments, while human engineers typically need extreme cold and vacuum to maintain similar quantum states. The deep ocean is also home to creatures that have evolved biological technology, rivaling human engineering, including fish with built-in fiber optic systems and living sonar. The brown snout spookfish has developed the only known mirror-based eyes in a vertebrate, using specialized crystals arranged in a precise concave structure to focus light in the deep-sea darkness. Certain deep-sea dragonfish produce red light through specialized organs, unusual because red light doesn't penetrate deep water, and have evolved the only known red-detecting visual pigments in deep-sea fish, essentially giving them secret communication others cannot detect. The pistol shrimp creates a cavitation bubble by snapping its specialized claws so quickly it exceeds the speed of sound in water, generating both a blinding flash of light and a sound reaching 218 decibels, louder than a gunshot. Sperm whales produce the loudest biological sounds on Earth, powerful enough to vibrate a human diver to death at close range, and process returning echoes with the largest brain on the planet to create detailed acoustic images of their surroundings. These natural technologies have evolved over millions of years to solve the same challenges human engineers tackle: seeing in darkness, communicating in challenging environments, and sensing distant objects. As you drift ever closer to sleep, imagine these living technologies operating in the darkness, biological solutions to engineering problems that humans are only beginning to understand and replicate. Let's explore one of the ocean's most enduring scientific puzzles, the question of collective consciousness in certain marine species that appear to operate as unified organisms, despite being composed of many individuals. Schools of certain fish species can contain thousands of individuals that change directions simultaneously with no discernible leader. Moving with such perfect coordination, they appear to share a single mind. The synchronization happens so quickly, often less than 1/50th of a second, for an entire school to change direction, that traditional explanations involving visual cues between neighbors cannot fully account for the phenomenon. Similar unified behavior appears in vast swarms of krill, which form complex three-dimensional structures that pulse, split, and reform, with an organizational complexity that seems to transcend individual awareness. Some researchers have proposed that electromagnetic fields generated by each animal's nervous system might create an overlapping network, allowing direct information transfer, essentially a biological wireless network. Others suggest quantum entanglement might play a role, with specialized cellular structures maintaining quantum coherence that connects individual organisms across distances. Whether explained by emergent properties, undiscovered sensory mechanisms, or more exotic physics, these collective behaviors represent one of marine biology's most persistent mysteries. Among the ocean's most remarkable examples of collective behavior are dolphins, which demonstrate forms of coordination and cooperation that blur the line between individual and group identity. Pods hunting together can create perfect circles of individuals that shrink inward to trap fish, with each dolphin maintaining precise spacing from its neighbors throughout the maneuver. They appear to plan complex hunting strategies in advance, with different individuals taking specialized roles that suggest a level of forethought and coordination once believed unique to humans. Some pods have developed distinct cultural hunting techniques passed down through generations, including the remarkable strategy of intentionally beaching themselves momentarily to grab fish stranded on shorelines. Brain scans of dolphins show specialized mirror neurons, firing both when they perform an action and when they watch another dolphin perform the same action, a neural basis for empathy and social cognition. Their sophisticated communication system includes unique signature whistles that function essentially as names, allowing individuals to call specifically to each other across considerable distances. These intelligent cetaceans may represent another form of consciousness on our planet, one oriented around social bonds and collective action, rather than the individualistic awareness that characterizes human experience. The ocean contains other forms of consciousness that challenge our understanding, including the remarkable distributed awareness of octopuses, whose neural architecture bears little resemblance to our own. An octopus has more neurons in its 8 arms than in its central brain, with each arm possessing a form of independent processing and decision-making capability. This distributed nervous system allows severed arms to continue performing complex tasks, including avoiding threats and searching for food, even when separated from the main body. The central brain appears to set general goals, while the arms determine how to accomplish them, creating a division of cognitive labor unlike anything in mammalian brain organization. Their problem-solving abilities, including opening child-proof pill bottles and navigating complex mazes, suggest forms of intelligence that evolved entirely independently from the vertebrate lineage humans belong to. Perhaps most remarkably, octopuses can recognize individual human faces even when wearing identical uniforms, a sophisticated visual processing feat unexpected in an invertebrate. These 8-armed marvels represent what consciousness might look like if it evolved along an entirely different pathway, intelligence expressed through a fundamentally alien neural architecture. Let's now drift toward one of the ocean's most persistent acoustic mysteries, the strange low-frequency sounds detected by underwater microphones that cannot be easily attributed to known sources. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones detected an ultra-low frequency sound in the Pacific that was one of the loudest underwater sounds ever recorded, dubbed the bloop. Scientists initially speculated it might be from an unknown marine creature, though it was later attributed to the sound of ice calving from Antarctica, yet questions remain about its unusual acoustic signature. Even more mysterious is the sound known as Julia, a rising tone detected in 1999 that doesn't match any known geological or biological source, and remains completely unexplained decades later. Other unexplained ocean sounds include the slowdown, the upsweep, and the whistle, each with distinctive acoustic properties that don't align with known natural phenomena. Some researchers speculate these sounds might result from interactions between ocean currents and previously unknown seafloor features, creating resonance patterns that propagate through the water. Others point to the possibility of classified military activities, suggesting some unexplained sounds might have human origins deliberately disguised or not publicly acknowledged. The ocean's mysterious soundscape includes other puzzling phenomena, including the bioduck sound heard in the Southern Ocean since the 1960s that was only recently attributed to Antarctic minke whales. For decades, scientists were baffled by this regular pulsing sound, which resembles a duck's quack but occurs in remote Antarctic waters where ducks certainly do not exist. Various theories attributed it to submarines, underwater equipment, or unknown marine creatures until 2013, when researchers finally identified minke whales as the source. Even with the mystery of its origin solved, scientists still don't understand why these whales produce such unusual vocalizations or what information they might convey. The 5-decade quest to identify this sound highlights how even in our technological age, the ocean keeps many of its acoustic secrets. Our understanding of marine bioacoustics remains in its infancy, with new sounds regularly recorded that cannot be attributed to known sources. The ocean is never silent. It speaks in a language of clicks, moans, whistles, and rumbles that we are only beginning to translate. Deep beneath the waves, another acoustic mystery unfolds in the strange world of underwater echo chambers that amplify sounds in ways that seem to defy standard physics. Certain underwater canyons and geological formations create acoustic properties where whispers can travel for miles, while loud sounds from just outside these zones become inaudible. Naval researchers have discovered shadow zones where submarines can hide acoustically, and sound channels where low-frequency noises can travel thousands of miles with minimal energy loss. Some natural features create standing wave patterns that amplify specific frequencies while canceling others, creating locations where particular sounds become dramatically louder or disappear entirely. Indigenous maritime peoples incorporated knowledge of these acoustic anomalies into their navigation and fishing practices, understanding how sound traveled in their local waters long before the science of acoustics existed. These natural acoustic phenomena likely contributed to many maritime legends, as sailors encountered zones where distant sounds seemed impossibly close or familiar noises vanished altogether. The ocean's complex sound propagation continues to challenge our understanding, creating acoustic experiences that can seem supernatural until the underlying physical principles are revealed. Let's explore one of the ocean's most persistent navigational mysteries: the strange ability of certain fish species to find their way back to specific breeding grounds across thousands of miles of featureless open ocean. Salmon navigate from the open Pacific to the exact freshwater streams where they were born, often traveling thousands of miles with pinpoint accuracy. Bluefin tuna migrate between Japan and California, crossing the entire Pacific Ocean along precise routes before returning to specific breeding areas year after year. European eels begin life in the Sargasso Sea near Bermuda, drift on ocean currents to Europe, then return to their exact birthplace after decades in European rivers, a journey of over 3,000 miles. Scientists believe these remarkable navigational feats involve multiple redundant systems, including sensitivity to Earth's magnetic field, celestial navigation, chemical recognition of water bodies, and possibly even acoustic maps of the ocean floor. What's particularly impressive is that many of these journeys are completed just once in a lifetime, with no opportunity to learn the route from experience or from other individuals. These innate navigational capabilities, encoded somehow in the animal's genetics and neural architecture, represent some of nature's most sophisticated guidance systems. Among the ocean's most mysterious navigators are sea turtles, which return to nest on the exact beaches where they were born despite having traveled thousands of miles through featureless ocean for decades. Researchers have discovered they possess an internal magnetic map that detects both the intensity and angle of Earth's magnetic field, essentially giving them a GPS-like ability. What's particularly remarkable is that this system compensates for the natural drift of Earth's magnetic field over time, suggesting either genetic programming that anticipates these changes or some unknown calibration mechanism. Baby turtles memorize the magnetic signature of their birth beach during a process called magnetic imprinting that occurs during their first days of life. They also appear to use the sound signature of waves breaking on their home beach. Each beach has a unique acoustic pattern based on its slope, sand composition, and surrounding seafloor topography. Some evidence suggests they may even use olfactory cues, detecting the specific chemical signature of their home beach, carried by ocean currents. These ancient reptiles, whose navigational systems evolved over 100 million years ago, demonstrate sophisticated multisensory navigation that still exceeds what humans can achieve without technological assistance. Now let's drift toward one of the ocean's most perplexing chemical mysteries: the strange case of underwater volcanoes that erupt with liquid carbon dioxide instead of lava. In the western Pacific near Taiwan, scientists have discovered volcanic vents that release buoyant liquid CO2 droplets that rise through the water like reverse rainfalls. These unusual volcanoes result from the extreme pressure at ocean depths, which maintains carbon dioxide in a liquid state rather than allowing it to gasify as it would at surface pressures. The surrounding water near these vents becomes highly acidic, creating environments where specialized extremophile microbes have evolved to thrive in conditions that would dissolve the shells of most marine organisms. These liquid carbon dioxide vents may serve as natural laboratories for studying the effects of ocean acidification, a process occurring globally as the ocean absorbs increasing amounts of atmospheric CO2. Some researchers believe similar hydrothermal systems might exist on ocean worlds beyond Earth, particularly on moons like Europa or Enceladus, where different pressure and temperature conditions could create exotic chemical environments. These strange underwater chemical factories represent another way the deep ocean creates conditions with few or no parallels on land, driving the evolution of lifeforms adapted to what would seem like alien environments to surface dwellers. The ocean holds other chemical puzzles, including the mysterious phenomenon of electric bacteria that can conduct electricity across substantial distances on the seafloor. Certain bacteria form filaments that can carry electric current over centimeters or even meters, an extraordinary distance at the microbial scale, equivalent to humans creating electrical connections across many miles. These living electrical cables often link oxygen-rich surface sediments with deeper anaerobic layers, essentially creating biological batteries that generate electricity from chemical gradients. Some form vast networks that can cover substantial areas of the seafloor, creating living electrical grids that transfer energy and share electrons between distant microbes. This ability to conduct electricity challenges our traditional understanding of bacteria as isolated single cells and suggests a level of microbial interconnection and resource sharing previously unimagined. Scientists have begun developing technologies to harness these natural electrical systems, creating microbial fuel cells that generate clean energy from seafloor sediments. These living electrical networks represent one of microbiology's most surprising discoveries, that some of Earth's simplest organisms have evolved sophisticated systems for energy sharing that resemble our own electrical infrastructure. Let's explore one of the ocean's most beautiful mysteries, the strange phenomenon of square waves that form distinct grid patterns on the ocean's surface, creating a checkered appearance that warns of dangerous conditions below. These geometric patterns result from two wave systems crossing at approximately right angles, creating a grid-like interference pattern visible from above. While visually striking, they indicate a dangerous phenomenon called cross seas, where different wave systems create powerful rip currents and unpredictable water movement beneath the surface. These conditions can trap even strong swimmers and have been responsible for numerous drownings, as the chaotic water movement below the geometric surface pattern can quickly exhaust anyone caught within it. Ancient mariners recognized these patterns as dangerous and incorporated warnings about them into navigational knowledge, passed between generations. The phenomenon demonstrates how the ocean can create perfect geometric patterns through purely physical processes, in this case, the interference of wave systems from different weather systems or reflections off coastlines. As you continue drifting towards sleep, imagine these perfect squares stretching across the ocean surface, a natural warning sign written in the language of wave physics. The ocean produces other warning signs, including the eerie phenomenon of green flashes that sometimes appear just as the sun dips below the horizon over water. These brief emerald flashes, typically lasting less than 2 seconds, result from atmospheric refraction, splitting the sun's light into its component colors as it passes through layers of air with different temperatures and densities. Sailors once considered witnessing the green flash a sign of exceptional good luck, with some maritime traditions claiming it granted the ability to read others' thoughts for a brief period afterward. Jules Verne popularized the phenomenon in his novel Le Rayon Vert, The Green Ray, where he wrote, "If there is a green ray, then you can read your own soul and the soul of those with you." The effect is entirely real, but so fleeting and dependent on perfect atmospheric conditions that many people spend their entire lives without seeing it, contributing to its near-mythical status. Modern physics fully explains the phenomenon as light refraction, but the brevity and beauty of these emerald flashes continues to evoke a sense of magic, even when the science is understood. These momentary green glimmers remind us that even the most ordinary aspects of ocean life, a sunset over water, can contain extraordinary moments of natural wonder. Now let's explore one of the ocean's most enduring biological mysteries, the question of how whales evolved from land mammals, making one of the most dramatic habitat transitions in evolutionary history. The ancestors of modern whales were wolf-like land animals that gradually returned to the ocean over approximately 10 million years, an eye blink in geological time for such a profound transformation. Fossil records show the progressive changes, limbs shortening and eventually disappearing, nostrils migrating to the top of the head to become blowholes, and body shapes becoming streamlined for hydrodynamic efficiency. What makes this transition particularly remarkable is that these animals had to evolve completely new sensory systems, breathing mechanisms, and reproductive strategies to succeed in their new aquatic environment. They essentially reversed the evolutionary journey their distant ancestors had made hundreds of millions of years earlier when vertebrate life first moved from water to land. Perhaps most incredibly, some whale species evolved into the largest animals that have ever existed on Earth. Blue whales exceed the size of the largest known dinosaurs, demonstrating the potential for gigantism in the buoyant ocean environment. This extraordinary evolutionary journey reminds us that life's adaptability knows few bounds, with whales representing one of nature's most successful environmental transitions. Among the ocean's most perfect evolutionary designs are sharks, which have remained fundamentally unchanged for over 400 million years, a testament to their near-perfect adaptation to marine environments. These ancient predators were already patrolling Earth's oceans 200 million years before the first dinosaurs appeared, and they've survived all 5 major mass extinction events. Their cartilaginous skeleton, lighter and more flexible than bone, provides structural support while enhancing buoyancy and maneuverability in ways that bony fish cannot match. Their skin is covered with tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles that reduce drag so effectively that human engineers have copied the design for swimming suits and boat hulls. Perhaps most remarkably, sharks possess an electromagnetic sense through specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini that can detect the faint electrical fields generated by all living creatures' muscle contractions. This electrical sense is so acute that sharks can detect the equivalent of a single AA battery connected to electrodes placed 1,000 miles apart in the ocean, effectively giving them a superpower beyond any human sense. These living fossils represent evolutionary perfection, organisms so well adapted to their environment that they've required only minor modifications over hundreds of millions of years, while countless other species have appeared and vanished. Let's drift toward one of the ocean's most persistent historical mysteries, the strange tale of the Mary Celeste, a merchant ship found abandoned in 1872, with its cargo intact and no sign of its crew. The vessel was discovered sailing under partial canvas near the Azores, in seaworthy condition, with ample provisions, and the crew's personal belongings still aboard, including their pipes and tobacco laid out, as if they had just stepped away momentarily. The ship's single lifeboat was missing, suggesting a deliberate abandonment rather than an attack or sudden catastrophe, yet no trace of the captain, his family, or the 7 crew members was ever found. What makes the case particularly baffling is that the valuable cargo was untouched. The crew's pay was still locked in the captain's cabin, and the ship had sustained no damage that would explain an emergency evacuation. The final log entry, made just 9 days before the ship was found abandoned, showed nothing unusual, and the ship was still on course with adequate food and water supplies. Theories range from temporary insanity caused by contaminated food to fears of an explosion from alcohol fumes from the cargo, but no explanation fully accounts for why experienced sailors would abandon a perfectly sound vessel in moderate weather far from land. This maritime mystery has inspired countless stories, becoming the archetype for ghost ship tales and a persistent puzzle that continues to intrigue historians and maritime experts more than a century later. The ocean has claimed many vessels over centuries, but few disappearances are as puzzling as the U.S. Cyclops, which vanished without trace in March 1918, with 306 crew members aboard. This massive collier coal transport ship disappeared somewhere between Barbados and Baltimore, becoming the largest loss of life in U.S. naval history not related to combat. No distress call was sent, no wreckage was ever found, and the ship simply ceased to exist somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle region. What makes the case particularly mysterious is that weather conditions were reported as moderate, the ship was well maintained, and its experienced crew had reported no mechanical problems. The vessel was carrying a heavy cargo of manganese ore, potentially affecting its stability, and the captain had a reputation for eccentric behavior, but neither factor explains a complete disappearance without any debris. Navy officials at the time stated, "The disappearance of this ship has been one of the most baffling mysteries in the annals of the Navy," a sentiment that remains true over a century later. The Cyclops represents one of history's most perfect disappearances, a massive vessel that simply vanished without leaving any evidence of its fate, as if it had sailed off the edge of the world. As you finally drift off to sleep, consider that even after centuries of exploration and scientific advancement, we've mapped less than 20% of our oceans in detail. The mysteries we've explored tonight represent just a fraction of what remains unknown in the blue depths that cover most of our world. New species, phenomena, and discoveries await in the vast underwater wilderness that surrounds our familiar terrestrial home. The same waters that gave birth to all life on Earth continue to surprise, challenge, and inspire us with their complexity and alien beauty. Perhaps in your dreams you'll visit those impossible realms where humans cannot go, the crushing depths, the eternal darkness, the alien landscapes of our planet's last true wilderness. Sleep well, knowing that while you rest, the ancient rhythms of the ocean continue, tides rising and falling, currents circling the globe, life flourishing in the depths. And tomorrow, the mysteries will still be there, waiting for those brave or curious enough to seek them out in the endless blue that surrounds us all.